sometime before we leave today. I've got a couple of things.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call the February 12th meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Tuolumne County to order. Please, I'm going to ask our clerk of the board, Alicia Jamar, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question of County Council. I meant to ask you this before the meeting, but forgot. Would it be okay legally for us to have a public comment period, even though this is a special meeting?
If you want to have it, you can.
Okay, I would ask for board consensus to have a public comment period, since this is really a rescheduling of a previous meeting. Okay, everybody's okay with that? Okay, thank you very much. So this is the time when the public can speak on any item that is not on the printed agenda. I'm not going to give you a time limit, but I would ask you to keep your remarks as brief as possible. Thank you. Anybody?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Suzanne Greenwood. I'm with Infant Child Enrichment Services and the local Child Care Planning Council. And I have two quick little things this morning. One is to introduce you, if you have not already met her, our new Executive Director, Cheryl Dodge. We're very, very happy to have her on board. So I hope you'll all get a chance to meet her. And we're just glad to have her with us. And then whenever I do get a chance to come up here, I like to share a little update about something that's going on with us. And Tracy, I think you'd appreciate this. We have been working for quite a while to go beyond the licensing regulations for disaster and emergency preparation. And so what we're doing is we are going to be handing out a tote like this, a simple little tote with a card to every child care program in the county, and one for every enrolled child in their program, with a little card asking for the parents to take this home, fill it with a few comfort items, maybe a stuffed up animal or a blanket, a picture, some bottled water, healthy snack, a couple things like that, and then their emergency information. Put it back in with the materials, and then give it back to their child care provider. And then each program will have a tote that they can have all their enrolled children's totes in, a bigger tote with their smaller totes, so that in the case of an evacuation, they will be able to grab those quickly and have all that materials and information to help comfort children in the case that they need to do that. So we're really excited to be able to give these to all the programs. We're going to be rolling this out in the next few months, especially to all the licensed programs, but also to a lot of the unlicensed programs, grandparents, families, friends, neighbors that are also caring for children. And whether they're licensed or not, they are caring for children and keeping them safe and healthy. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marianne Schmidt, and today I'm going to ask the board to empower our community about fire issues in our county. From my talking and meeting with people, our community is ready to work hard to keep a paradise from happening here in Tuolumne County. So empower them to do it. Let's educate them on how to prepare themselves and their property. Let's build a county website that is easy to use and has appropriate information. And as part of the county contract with CAL FIRE, have the CAL FIRE teams do home and property inspections to help the individual be better prepared. And since individual property owners have so much biomass, let's help them with the biomass by providing free dumping. Develop curbside biomass pickup. We have the infrastructure to do this. Let's use our biomass resource to develop biomass businesses in this county, small lumber mills that could create products such as fence posts, fire starters, briquettes, pellets, furniture, yard compost. These products could be shipped to Stockton or Sacramento and then out to the rest of the world. Empower our people. Support them to help take care of this beautiful county. You are our leaders, and you can do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor, just because it's in the public interest to note that we will be starting a series of meetings in March, education series, and that program will be rolling out the 1st of March in all of our districts.
Thank you, Supervisor Brennan. Member of the public.
Good morning, Tanya Allen,
Hi, Tanya.
Engineering Manager of CRA. I just wanted to give the public a quick update on our roads. Our county crews from these last storms are about 98% done with all the plowing that needed to be done. They have all the yards stocked with sand. And then as a reminder, the public can get sand at our yards for free. They just have to purchase their own sandbags. And then we also wanted to prepare you for these upcoming storms that are anticipated for high winds. So that means trees down, which slows down our snow plowing, as well as getting the roads open. And then also it's anticipated there's going to be a lot of flooding. So just for the public to be prepared for all of that.
Thank you, Tanya. And just for the public's information, we're pretty much geared up to deal with snow above roughly 3,000 feet. When it gets below 3,000 feet, our crews are really taxed. And I want to thank the incredible efforts that they all did. I know some people were housebound for a while until our crews could get to them. But that's the nature of the beast when the snow gets down to the levels that we saw. So it's not that the crews weren't out there. They were out there working like crazy. And I just, please pass that on to the crews. That I got a lot of emails thanking us for the efforts that they were doing. So please pass it on.
Will do.
Yep.
I think we should give a big shout out to PG&E and Comcast too, because I saw them everywhere the last few days.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So I'm sure they were working very hard. Thank you for having public comment. I appreciate that. I want to thank Dr. Miller, who joined me on my walk with me, and I believe there was one other couple that got together out of all those things I suggested, so that was really great. And February 17th is Random Act of Kindness Day. So I would invite everyone to do 3 random acts of kindness day on that day, and maybe do a little act of kindness every day before then.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period. Would the clerk of the board please read our consent calendar?
Minutes of the meeting held January 15th, January 23rd, January 24th, and January 25th. Finding that a summary of ordinance numbers 3350 and 3351 were published. Adopting a resolution opting into the California Complete Count Census 2020 effort and participation in the state Census 2020 outreach activities. Adopting the resolution approving the building lease amendment 1 with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection for the lease of a portion of CAL FIRE's Sonora Fire Station. Accepting the 2019 Local Child Care and Development Planning Council's membership report. Approving a notice of completion for contract Evergreen Road pavement repairs. Adopting a resolution authorizing the environmental health of the Community Resources Agency as a local enforcement agency to submit grants to CAL FIRE for the local enforcement agency grant and also for the Cal Recycle for the waste tire enforcement grant. Adopting the resolution authorizing the Community Resources Agency Director to submit applications for farm and ranch and or solid waste disposal and site cleanup grants offered by the Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery. Approving the establishment of a $13 annual fee for fiscal year 2019-20 through 20 to administer and defend Chapter 5.28 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, control of rents and mobile home parks. approving an agreement with the Central Star Behavioral Health, Inc. for crisis residential units, approving an agreement with the Department of Health Care Services for substance use disorder services, approving an appointment of Don Meyer as a technical expert and Brendan Simonacci as a public at-large member to the Solid Waste Independent Hearing Panel, approving the appointment of Christy Conforti and the reappointment of Charlotte Frazier and Ted Michaud to the Tuolumne County Commission on Aging, accepting the resignation of Leon Cassis Jr. from the Tuolumne County Commission on Aging and also the Area 12 Agency on Aging, and directing the clerk to post a notice of vacancy and send a letter of appreciation. Accepting the resignation of David Wynn from the Historic Preservation Review Commission and directing the clerk to send a letter of appreciation and post a notice of vacancy.
Okay. Does any member of the board wish to pull an item from the agenda, or a consent agenda? Seeing none, do I have any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll move on adoption of consent calendar.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Brennan and a second by Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, Supervisor Gray is absent today due to a recent surgery, so he will not be voting on any of them. The vote is 4-0. Would the clerk of the board please read our next agenda item?
This is a presentation of County Service Award to Ann Connolly from the Human Services Agency.
Good morning, Tracy Riggs, County Administrator's Office. Today is with great pleasure that I get to be part of the 30-year Service Award for Ann Connolly, who is hiding over here in the back. She made me promise I wouldn't do this too long. But I had the great pleasure. Ann Connolly was my department head some years ago, and Ann, you have touched the lives of so many, as we can see sitting here in the audience, and so many others throughout the years. You provide leadership and mentoring, and I personally want to thank you for that. You also have been very steady in your approach and your consistency in how you deal with all of your programs and your services and your staff. Thank you for everything that you've done and everything that you will do.
This is one of the great pleasures of being a supervisor, is getting to present these awards. I did understand that Ann is a little bashful about this. She really didn't want to make a big deal about working here for 30 years, but that's a pretty big deal. And that she wanted us to keep our comments brief. So I've got a little speech that I prepared that I'm not going to give. And you are the quintessential department head. I mean, you really, you've got about 40% of our total budget, I think, something like that. And it's a part of the budget that I never really worry about. Because I know it's in very capable and competent hands. You've got 40% of our budget, because I have no idea what percentage of our people that you have working for you, but it's probably pretty close to that number. And I have to say, I believe that they're blessed to have you as their leader, and there's a lot of them here today. So I'm pretty sure that they're not here because they don't enjoy working for you. So you do some of the most important work. Your people do, not you don't, but your people do some of the most important work that this county does for our population, and they do it extremely well, largely because you've hired good people and you've taken good care of your good people. So I want to thank you for the 30 years of service to our county, and thank you for taking care of that great group of people.
Thank you so much, Ann Connolly, Human Services Agency Director. And it is truly an honor to stand here today in front of my staff and coworkers and fellow county staff. I'd just like to ask everyone who works for Human Services Agency or who has worked for Human Services Agency or who has partnered with Human Services Agency, please stand up. All right. Thank you. And this is the reason I'm standing here after 30 years. Just what you've seen in this room. As Chairman Rotifer stated, this is a job that no one person does. If you don't have the staff with the willingness to and the heart to serve, you don't have anything. And the reason I've been here all this time is because of the people behind me. It's because of the staff we've had. The names have changed over 30 years, but the mission and commitment to serving our community have not. And it's also the partnerships that one develops over the years that's so critical. Because again, I'm probably about the most senior person left in the county government, but what's exciting is that it never gets old. We may age, but we enjoy the work. We're more committed to the work. We see more need as time goes on, and I think that that's really why I've just loved my work. I was trying to look just really quickly at I found a quote from Steve Jobs, and I think this sums up in a nutshell kind of what I think about this. So your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And I think the people in this room have found it, and I thank your board, and I thank Ms. Riggs, and all the people that I've worked with over the past 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann, for all you do for Tuolumne County. Would the clerk of the board please read item 19?
This is consideration of approving an agreement with Civil Engineering Services with Nichols Consulting Engineer for 4 road maintenance and rehabilitation accounts and mitigation-funded road repair projects.
I feel so unloved. Let's give them a minute to clear the room, pretty much. Thank you all for coming. Okay, Tanya, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Tanya Allen, Engineering Manager. The contract in front of you today is to help augment staff for 4 different projects needed of preventative maintenance, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of pavement. The projects are Tuolumne Road North, Kewen Mill, and Standard Road. As you recall, the State of the Roads report presented to your board in April of 2016 had discussion of keeping our good roads good. In November of 2016, staff brought in front of your board to request tribal mitigation funds to perform crack sealing, to prepare for the surface treatment in 2017 as identified by our pavement management program on Tuolumne Road. Staff moved forward with the allocation of tribal funds to prepare engineering design for the surface treatment on Tuolumne Road. Because tribal funds did not have enough unallocated balance to cover the cost of the surface treatment, this was in your report of mitigation funds in December of 2018, staff intended to use what I call RMRA, these are your SB1 funds, in 1920 to fully fund the project. Staff was also able to move forward with the outcome of Prop 69 with more preventative treatments for Tuolumne Road North. These projects were presented to your board and was adopted by resolution for fiscal year 18-19. Based on the recent storms of 2017, staff also did include Kewen Mill Road, which needs a short segment to be reconstructed. And Standard Road also needs rehabilitation due to the impact of the storms. As listed in your 17-18 RMA allocations, a culvert needed to be replaced along that road. The county has also been in coordination with TUD, who has a replacement of a water main along Standard Road, which has now been pushed to summer of 2020. So staff is working with TUD in that coordination and has push the rehabilitation of Standard Road into the fiscal year 1920, which we will be presenting those projects to your board in 1920, or in May, excuse me. So it is recommended that your board approve the agreement with NCE authorizing the chair to sign so we can move forward with the design of these rehabilitation, pavement maintenance, and reconstruction projects.
Okay, any questions of staff at this time? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. First of all, this is great. We're doing road work on roads. And according to this, there's going to be consistent funding for the future. But one of the things on page 3, when we're talking about the costs, there's the adopted budget of $147,000. Oh, I'm sorry. I believe it's page, I printed out. It's page 3 for me. It may be page 22. There's the adopted budget of $147,300. There's a requested budget of $330,000, and then there's a variance of $183,000. So just so that I'm clear and the public's clear, it appears that there's a shortfall of about $183,000. Where will that come in the funding for the civil engineering of this portion?
So as you can see, we're going to pull from the tribal funds as shown in the funding revenue. Looks like I have an extra number in there too. As well as additional RMRA funds. So we're doing a little shuffle there in order to accommodate that for that additional $183,000 that was needed. Okay. These were first budgetarily estimated with staff doing this work, and now that we're augmenting staff, it's much more costly, and so there's additional funds required.
So the RMRA and then the New York Tribal Fund will offset that $183,000.
Exactly.
Okay, just clarifying. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That clarification, though, really illustrates what a bargain we get with staff.
So one of the things that I would like us to look at is, as we get additional funding, is complete streets projects, okay? I just make this comment because we really need to get there. And I know this is kind of a legacy in terms of planning and everything, but at some point we need to start thinking about doing complete streets projects when we're doing, especially when we're rebuilding streets, roads, and predominantly in our major and minor collectors, but we really do need to do that for both public safety during normal times, but also that gives us increased capacity for egress and ingress in terms of if you've got 2 half lanes of on either side with some road cones, you can make it a 2-lane road, a 3-lane road to get people out faster. So we just need to be looking at that.
Definitely.
Okay. Any other? Go ahead.
You took the words right out of my mouth, but I think it's fantastic that we're using these funds to improve and maintain the roads that we have. And the roads, Tuolumne Road North and Kewen Mill are 2 pretty major ingress-egress routes. So those are, it's a good area to focus on. And with the board, I'd like to work toward, long-range planning for actually widening the roads and providing more ingress-egress opportunities, like a 3rd lane, those types of things. So, it's good that we're getting this done now. So,
okay. Any other comments from the board? Public comment. Okay, bring it back to the board. Looking for any additional questions, comments, or a motion.
I'll move on staff recommendation.
Okay, I've got a motion by Supervisor Brennan,
Second?
second by Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Abstain. Okay, now 4-0. Okay, would the clerk read item number 20?
This is consideration of approving amendment number 2 to the agreement with the county to Hunt and Sons, Inc. for bulk fuel and lubrication delivery services.
Okay.
Good morning, Board. David Gonzalez, I'm your Community Resource Agency Director, and with me is Kim McFarland, the Assistant Director from the Public Works side of our house.
Welcome.
So in order for the city, for the county fleet, heavy equipment and light duty trucks to operate, the county must have delivered bulk fuel and bulk oil, and it's maintained in various locations throughout the county. In December of 2015, the county prepared and issued an RFP for these solicit bidders for delivery of that fuel and lubricants. The executed agreement was approved by the board on February 15th, 2016, and that was the term through February 14th of 2018. In that contract, the term allowed the parties to enter into an extension, and we have entered in that through 2019. At this time, the parties' desire to exercise the second option was provided in that agreement to add an additional year to that contract. This would be amendment number 2 with Hunt and Sons, providing the board approves this. The existing conditions would run through 2020, February 14th. The maximum amount for that is up to $1 million. And there are two separate things here. So we got another item out just after that. So this is a separate portion of the bulk fuel and lubricant deliveries. We did look back. There were some questions from some of the board members and some of the public about the rates. So what I did is I asked staff to pull all the way back to 2008, where there was an RFP that went out. Again, in 2012, an RFP went out to confirm that the rates were competitive. And I'll summarize by saying this portion of it, there was very little variance, a few of them a few cents, and some of them, up to 0.009. So less than a penny variance from that. So in good conscience, we looked at that. We wanted to be certain we were being good stewards of the public money, and also making sure we were efficient in our actions here before you. We will go out for an RFP for both of these items, this one specifically, in the fall with Kim's group and our business division to see what's out there at a competitive rate. So the fall of this year, we'll start that process, go out for an RFP, have plenty of time for folks to respond, both local and anybody else, to see what's out there. So at this time, it's recommended that the board approve amendment number 2 to extend a one-year agreement with the Hunt and Sons for bulk fuel and delivery of lubricants, and authorize the board chair to sign the attachments, amendment number 2 and the attachments above. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I just had one question. So we're going out to RFP in the fall. Is that, are we required to switch providers, or can we re-up this if it turns out that this continues to be the best deal for the county?
Yeah, we do not have to change providers. You can,
Okay.
if the same folks apply and it's a good rate, and the board wants to award it, that'll be,
Okay.
that
So,
would be,
so
and I'll
the-
say late fall. Good.
I was just going to say, we can't put another extension on this, so it has to go out for bid, though.
okay, so then it would go out to RFP and this provider would apply again, presumably, and then, okay. All right, thank you.
And so just for public clarification, because I had some questions, can you confirm that this contract doesn't fix an absolute price on the fuel, but it fixes the vendor markup on a wholesale price? Is that correct?
My apologies, I did not cover that. Yes, this is the set rate, because the fuel rates and oils fluctuate with the market, and that this is the percentage of markup over that. And it is quite competitive.
Thank you.
For clarifying. I apologize for not doing that.
Any public comment? Bring it back to the board. Don't be bashful.
A move on staff recommendation.
Okay, got a motion by Supervisor Brent.
I'll second it.
Okay, and second by Supervisor Kirk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay. Abstain. 4-0. Please read item 21.
Consideration of approving amendment number 2 to the agreement with WH Brashears, Inc. for card lock fueling services for county vehicles to be dispensed from points of sale locations within approximately 2-mile radius of the city of Sonora.
You're still there.
We're here because we enjoy ourselves here.
Okay.
Chairman of the board, members of the board, again, David Gonzalez. I'm here with Kim McFarland to cover the second portion of this. And this is consideration of approving amendment number 2 with WH Brashears, I always flip that around, for the card lock fueling services that provided for our fuel services. So same scenario. In order for the county fleet to operate our heavy equipment and our light-duty vehicles for the entire county, we must purchase quite a large amount of fuel. We have a card lock system that's here from our vendor dispensing those fuels for this portion of it. Again, in 2015, the county prepared an RFP to solicit bidders. WH Brashears, Inc. Was awarded that and executed agreement in February 15th of 2016, and that contract ran through 2018. Again, in that agreement, there was an option for extensions and amendments to that. The first amendment was executed on February 14th, that ran through 2019, which is where we're here today. The parties in here today, again, wish to exercise option to extend that term another year through 2020, February 14th of 2020, again with Brashears. The fuel, again, is not a fixed price. It's the increment over the market rate. Rather than fix that, I looked back to make sure that we were getting a good deal on this. And again, the same thing. I've spoken with a couple of you about this. I'll give you an example for the unleaded fuel rate. The price over they call it OPIS, Oil Price Information Services. The markup over that is 0.0995 cents. And back in 2008, when I looked at it, it was 0.09. So looking at that, we've opted that this is a very good deal for the county, and we've asked that that amount be incremented up to $2.5 million to provide fuel for the entire fleet for the county, and that's to make sure that we have sufficient funds to run for the whole year. So it's recommended that the board approve amendment number 2 to extend beyond the 1-year agreement with Brashears for car lock fuel services and authorize the Board of Supervisors chairman to sign the attached amendment number 2. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And so this is not to exceed 2.5 million. What do you have a projection on what? Because obviously it's not going to go up to that maximum amount. What portion of that do you expect to see utilized? And is there a way we can reduce that?
I don't believe I looked back to see what we spent. We did increment that up slightly because we bumped up right to, I think it was $2 million the last time. We bumped right up to that. I don't have an exact number. I'm happy to get that back to you. I apologize. We didn't do that research.
Okay. Anybody else? Public comment? Bring it back to the board.
I move we adopt the agenda item as written.
Okay. Got a motion by Supervisor Campbell,
Second.
second by Supervisor Kirk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 4-0. Please read item number 22, Clerk of the Board.
This is consideration of adopting a resolution rescinding resolution number 7117, approving the changes to the standard days and hours of operation for the Community Resources Agency Permit Services Counter.
Welcome, Quincy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisors. Quincy Yaley, Assistant Director at the Community Resources Agency.
of Development, actually. Today, we're here to ask you to consider adopting a resolution to change the standard days and hours of the operation of the Community Resources Agency Permit Services Counter. This is our Development Information Center located on the 4th floor of our building. Currently, our hours are from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, but it has been determined that there is a need for several times a month to open a little bit later to allow the staff that work at the 4th floor information counter to have a staff meeting. Because they work the front counter when our building is open and during our hours of operation, they are unable to take a break and do the sorts of meetings that we need to have done in terms of staff development and such like that. So we are here to ask that on the first and third Wednesdays of every month that the building will continue to open at 8 o'clock. The 3rd floor will be open to the public, but just ask for an hour delay in the opening of the Permit Information Center on the 4th floor. It's kind of like we have the best pizza in Tuolumne County, and it's the only place that you can get pizza. And occasionally, we need to close our pizza counter so that we can have our pizza makers make pizza better, and they can make it faster. And so if you would support this resolution, we can do a better job of making pizza for Tuolumne County.
I like pizza, so I'll be over. Cute, very cute. So you're only changing 1 hour, huh?
We're just asking for 1 hour, the first and third Wednesdays of the month.
Okay.
This team is led by Brian Bell over at our Development Information Counter. We, in the past, have been able to try to hold sort of a short semi-staff meeting, but those staff members keep getting pulled to the counter. We used to be able to have other staff cover that counter, such as building inspectors, but due to retirements, we're also down in that area as well. So I don't know. I used to be able to have the pizza delivery drivers cover the counter, but they're out delivering pizzas because we're selling so many. So
you can't sell what you don't make.
That's right. And so we really just need a couple hours a month. This is a pilot program for us. And so we as we begin to staff back up in our building, we may be back here again, opening for that extra hour.
Okay. Well, any comments from the board? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can sure see the need for relief for our pizza makers and being able to have these meetings. Will you track those? I just want to make sure that the public, we're finding that slot of time that works for the public too. And so if you can.
We'll put out press releases and do kind of our standard notification, and I would expect that it will take several closures for people to get in the groove. And if folks come to the counter, just as we do right now, if we need to pull someone out of a meeting to serve a customer that's traveled long and far for their pizza, we will come out and certainly help them. But we may offer them a cup of coffee and just ask them to wait a few minutes.
I have a question. How many staff do you have?
Sure. So in the Development Information Center, we have 2 full-time permit techs and 1 relief permit tech that works 3 days a week. They work in concert with our plans examiners, and we have 2 full-time plans examiners. The Development Information Center serves more than the planning and building divisions, though. They are the front counter for planning, building, code compliance, also our fire inspectors, environmental health, housing, and oftentimes we have members of the public who come to the wrong floor. They're looking for solid waste surveying and public works roads. And so we field a lot of those folks upstairs as well, and vice versa on the 3rd floor.
So you only have 5 employees that could potentially help people that come to the counter?
In the initial contact, and really it's actually 2.5 that make that initial contact with the customer, and then triage them to the next level, the next employee to help them.
And are you seeing an upturn in the number of permit requests or questions related to permits at the front desk?
The front in terms of building permit submittals, yes, we get that, but also just a lot of questions. I was working the front counter yesterday because we're down on staff, and we're fielding questions, just basic questions about zoning and general plan. Someone came in, wanted to use permit for a hot dog cart. Someone else wanted to do a land division. People have questions about their easements and things like that. So if you remember from the board retreat, we showed Fears Land, which was all the things that the Community Resources Agency does in a day. That's pretty typical of the front counter as well.
Okay.
Okay. I will tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I will tell you that I got nothing but positive feedback from your customers when you have shut down for a half a day or whatever in planning, or I'm sorry, in permitting in order to clear backlogs. They would rather have you available less but have a quicker response time. Plus, I think it's very important that, and you know this as well as anyone, it's very important to care for our employees' quality of life at work. If they don't enjoy coming to work, they're not going to give us their best. So anything like this, I support it wholeheartedly. And any time that I would recommend actually all of our department heads look at ways that they can make their employees more productive. So I think it's really, really important. With that, I'll go to public comment.
Well, I would like to say that I support this, and I'm very impressed with your front staff, because sometimes I can get pizza at 7:30 in the morning, so they start before 8.
From a true breakfast pizza lover. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, bring it on back to the board.
So I'd like to thank you guys for looking for these solutions. And we talked at the retreat how important it is for our staff, and Carl hit on it. And so I will gladly move on the staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion from Supervisor Brennan, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you for making the best pizza in Tuolumne County. It's 4-0. Would the clerk of the board please read item number 23?
Consideration of approving a lease with Phyllis Lee Ching Chu and George Lee for the 18701 Tiffany Drive, Suite 1E and 1F of the Tuolumne County, for the Tuolumne County Library in Twain Harte Branch.
Good morning, members of the board, Mr. Chair. I'm Liz Peterson with the County Administrator's Office. I'm here this morning, as the clerk read, to request your board approve a lease with Phyllis Lee Ching Chu and George Lee for 18701 Tiffany Drive in Twain Harte. This is what we know it as the Twain Harte branch of the Tuolumne County Library. The Tuolumne County Library has been housed there since 2004. This is in the Twain Harte Shopping Center at Suites 1E and 1F. In 2018, so just this past year, the building was sold, and so the county took the opportunity to renegotiate the terms of the lease with the new owner. The location is working well for current employees and for the public, and so we opted to try to see what we could do to keep services operating out of that location. So this new lease term for your consideration is for 5 years with the option to extend it for additional 5 years. We were able to renegotiate our rate. So previously, or this past year, we were paying $2.17 per square feet. And we were able to renegotiate that down to $1.18 per square feet. And that's for this first year, and then the second year, and then starting the third year, the third, fourth, and fifth years, the rate would go up by 2.5%. And that's just about the average of the CPI over the last handful of years. So it's pretty well in line with the CPI increase. And that is standard among leases. We do generally increase by a small percentage per year. In addition, we're also able to make some changes to the maintenance terms in the lease, and so now things are a little more clearly spelled out for our facilities maintenance staff, so they understand what they are responsible for, and the lessor understands what they are responsible for. And so the terms of the lease will begin, if your board approves it, on March 1st of this year, and we should expect a savings of about $20,000 annually.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Yeah, just a few. It's my district. So some great things about this. We're saving $20,000 a year, so thank you for looking into that, negotiating it. It's going to save on the workload of our facilities. One thing, and I tried calling them the other day, but their hours, they're only hit and miss.
The Twain Harte branch?
Yeah, they're I think 2 days a week, and then the weekends. And just thinking numbers, over the course of 10 years, it's $250,000 paying rent for this. So. I don't want to take away any library from the public. It's, people use it, homeschoolers use it. People, from what I've been told, have cabins up there, come in, use the internet, use the access. But I just want to make sure that if we are renting this, that it's utilized to its fullest potential. So is it just one staff who works there, or are there volunteers?
Yeah. I'll let Daniel, General Services Agency Director, speak to that.
Okay.
Yes, we have both. We have both staff and we have volunteers. I know my kids go there from Twain Harte School, walk across the street, and they avail themselves of the volunteers as well as being able to check out books from the paid staff. It is a well-used and well-loved branch library.
Okay.
And so the library is very much in favor of staying at this location.
Right. So as far as, are we utilizing it to its fullest potential as far as hours of operation, and especially during the summertime with people coming up and visiting, and internet access?
The library director would love to increase the hours, no doubt. That will be a budget decision that we'll bring to your board. All branches would love to extend their hours.
Because I like to discuss, especially if we got volunteer basis,
Yeah.
people, we could maybe get more bang for our buck and use volunteers to make it happen.
Yep.
So, cool. All right,
Certainly.
thank you.
I'm going to say, though, that I'm glad you're going to be their advocate to remind us that you saved $20,000 and that maybe we should be reinvesting that money in the library.
Yes, thank you.
And I'll thank you, Supervisor Brennan, for those comments. I agree completely. I spent a lot of time in the Twain Harte Library. I encourage anybody that lives up there to go. If you haven't been, take a look. It's great. It has a wonderful feel to it. It's a lot more quiet, more serene than our downtown library. And I think it's great that we were able to save this money on the and renegotiate the contract. So great job on that. In terms of the utilization, I mean, we could always utilize the libraries more, and so getting people to get in there and use the facilities that we have is a good way to do that. So I just encourage people to check out the library, and thank you very much for your work on this.
Okay. Public comment. I can count to 3 already. Bring it back to the board.
All right, so I'll move on staff recommendation to approve the lease with Phyllis Lee. I'm not going to try and say his name, but yeah, approve on it.
Okay, got a motion by Supervisor Kirk,
Second.
second by Supervisor Brennan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, 4-0. I'm going to ask that we go to item 25 first, and then we'll go back to item 25. Is that okay? Would the clerk of the board please read item 25?
Sure. This is consideration of adopting updated recreation facility use and programming policies.
Okay.
Yeah, good morning. Daniel Richardson, General Services Agency Director, along with Eric Aiken, who's a Recreation Supervisor. We appreciate you looking at an adoption of additional recreation reservation policies. From time to time, it is necessary to update these to make sure they reflect the current best practices, and we have evaluated the use of our facilities, and we're trying to improve the way we do business. And so we have highlighted several changes that we are recommending to your board that will help the public better understand when they have the facility, what are the rules, and so we can make changes as weather, as staffing changes might happen, so that we can have the appropriate staff available and the location ready for their use. So first of all, we have our standard park rules that we've highlighted some of the changes on here. Really, it's just making sure we know who is in charge, that they understand what the rules are. If there's anything that goes wrong, we need to know who we can notify and how we can modify things when, for example, weather or staffing concerns are raised. We also talk about we extend the no smoking area. We let them know that no vehicles are allowed inside the pedestrian gates. These things may seem normal, but it's important we put these in because they try to do these things, and we're making sure that people are safe inside the gates. Also, one of the important things is that they give us 30 days notice before if they want to sell food or have barbecue, so they can get appropriate environmental health reviews in timely fashion. Also, we talk about service animals being allowed. We do not allow dogs at Standard Park, and people try to bring them in. Quite often, we're very clear now that we do allow service animals only. Those are the items in the Standard Park rules. Any questions on Standard Park before I move on to other facilities?
Here we go.
Yeah, where are we at? First of all, hi, Eric. That guy gave me one of my first jobs when I was 16 as a lifeguard. So there is no conflict of interest here, but it doesn't look like he's changed a bit.
We have him to blame?
Huh?
We have him to blame?
Right. He probably doesn't recognize me, though. I was a long-haired hippie kid. On number 17, it says, setting up tents or awnings or erecting construction of any structure must be approved. So are we talking about like umbrellas for soccer games and awnings for soccer games? Are we talking about bigger? Because as a soccer coach with little kids, sometimes it's 100 degrees outside. I like to keep them shaded.
Eric Aiken, Recreation Supervisor. That's mainly like your big, anything that's going to get staked in the ground is one, because we have irrigation and things that we have had ruptured. That's more of your like bounce houses, your big, not bigger than an easy up.
Okay.
So like if the umbrellas that you screw in the ground, that would need approval because, again, we have a lot of irrigation underneath that we don't want someone rupturing one of our pipes.
So during soccer games, those awnings,
the little easy ups that you get,
will be fine.
Get at like Big Five, those are fine.
Okay, just want to make sure we're clear.
All right, thank you very much. What would it take to establish regular hours for Standard Park, where it would be open consistently at a particular time, 4 to 5 days a week?
We are currently open right now. We have staff that opens the park typically about 7:30 in the morning, and they're there till, if we have adult programs going on, till about 10 o'clock at night. So even though we don't have a program going on, the park is open. We do have a lot of people that come in the parking lot and have lunch out in the picnic areas. The gates are also open, so we do have families that come in and they'll go use the playground with the kids or come and use the restroom. So the park is open. If you're looking to do an actual organized activity, that needs to be scheduled through the rec department because there's insurance requirements and things that we have to have. But in terms of just coming and using the park and playing on the playground, we are open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, from about 7:30 in the morning. Like I said, if we have adult programs, till as late as 10 o'clock at night.
Okay. I guess I kind of meant more the weekend. So, because typically Saturday and Sunday, which is the time when, a lot of families that I know would want to avail themselves of the services at the park. It's not consistent when it's open.
The problem with the weekends is that's probably our busiest, our most requested time of use. So that's when we get all of our tournaments and scheduled use. So it's kind of hard to have those conflicting events going on. We pretty much have most weekends scheduled with either youth soccer, softball, softball tournaments, things like that going on. So those are pretty much booked throughout the year. Obviously, this time of year when it's, we can probably do cross-country skiing out there right now. But so it's a little more difficult to have those open hours on the weekend because of the scheduled use that we get from all of our users.
And so a county staffer is there during those scheduled events.
Anytime,
And if there
anytime
wasn't-
those gates are open, we have staff at the park.
Okay. And then if there wasn't a scheduled event, like often on Sundays there aren't those kind of events, that would take a staffer to be there to open it.
Yes.
Sitting there. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And we don't have.
We don't have that. If you'd like to give us that, we'd love
Okay.
to.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you very much.
Okay, should we move on to the second sheet then, or?
Sure.
Okay, real quick. So this is more for reserving, how you reserve a facility, say at the Jamestown or Groveland centers, the community halls. This, really, the major changes here are giving us the ability to cancel if we have, once again, any issues with the site. We have, also, this is pool rentals, once again, if we aren't available to get staffing, usually at the end of the season when we have the high schoolers go back into school and people still want to rent the pools, this allows us to cancel if we need to. One of the biggest things here is if someone decides I no longer want to hold my event for some reason, this allows us to recoup a portion of the fee from them. Also, if someone says Sally Sue no longer wants to participate in your event and she's attended for 10 days, we can prorate and get reimbursement for them, not for the whole event, but for that portion they did not participate in. So lots of rules, refunding policies that we have put into place here that we think allows things to move smoothly and is predictable for those who are renting the facilities.
Okay. Any questions on that?
I had one question.
Go ahead.
And it was with item 3 with the 15 calendar days or less, unless the extraordinary circumstances, no refund. And so I'm going to assume that weather events would fall under that extraordinary circumstance because we don't know 15 days ahead what kind of extreme weathering might.
Yeah, and it does talk about that earlier, that whether, if we cancel an event for whatever reason, whether it's weather or at a pool the chemicals are out of balance or we don't have staff, if the county is the one canceling, we offer a full refund, including the deposit. So, yeah, in that situation, if they had an event scheduled for today and it started snowing, then they would get a refund for that, yes.
But more to the point, as an example, we didn't cancel, but they did want to cancel because of an extreme weather event. Maybe they couldn't get to us because they're snowed in or whatever. That would be an extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah, and also medical reasons fall under
Okay.
that too. If they're doing swim lessons and a kid breaks the legs in a cast, that would fall under that category as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just on that number 17, since it looks like it's open for interpretation, can you update that with some more specifics? So I just wouldn't want recreational staff.
back to it, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just before we close it out. I just don't want to have one of your staff read that and then go pull down, people's tents for shade. Just make sure it's more specific, like with if you got to nail things in the ground or screw things in, that way it's just clear. Thank you.
Yeah, I might ask you to, rewrite that so that it specifies, maybe like you did here, putting stakes into the ground that might impinge on our irrigation systems or something. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. That help? Yeah. Okay, any public comment? You can at the mic.
I will, okay. David Wynn, I'm here on behalf of Relay for Life, and I just have a question. Is the Standard Park facility open? Are there any fee waivers for charitable organizations that might want to use the park for a fundraiser? Does anybody know? Would that even be a possibility?
No.
There's not, we actually did the update of the fees in our fee ordinance recently for the park, and we only give reductions for youth-related sports activities.
Second question is, would it be possible for an organization to use the park for such a operating event?
Oh, certainly. We're open to any type of event. It doesn't have to be for just athletics. If someone wants to use the fields we can be creative. We want the public to use Standard Park.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion as staff has been directed to edit number 17. Anybody?
Sure. Move to consider adopting updated recreation facility use and programming policies as recommended.
Okay, got a motion to adopt.
Second.
And I have a second from Supervisor Campbell. The motion was made by Supervisor Kirk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, 4-0. Thank you very much. Would the clerk please read item number 24?
This is a presentation and discussion on the board workshop held on January 23rd through 25th, 2019.
How are we going to conduct business when all of our board police are down there? I don't know.
Oh, we can still tell you what to do from down here.
Okay.
So,
Staff report.
So Tracy Riggs, County Administrator's Office.
Sarah Carrillo, County Council.
So this is the time we'd like to give an update. Mostly this is for our community who was not present during the board workshop. Every year for the last few years, we have had an annual board workshop. And this is a time that we don't get very often throughout the year where staff have direct time with the Board of Supervisors for strategic planning. So as we outlined in the board memo, is the workshop this year was held on January 23rd through the 25th at Rush Creek. Dr. Larique Hiley was a facilitator once again, and she really did an outstanding job of keeping us focused and moving through the agenda. So we had 3 days. The first day was board members, the board clerk, myself, and county council, and we did have 2 other staff join us throughout the time, which was the assistant county administrator and an administrative analyst. And this day really was time spent working with your board and looking at priorities, talking about where are we going into the future. But one of the things that County Council and I really wanted to take the time to work with the board on was keeping our focus on priorities as outlined by the board. And what really came from this was your board wanting us to come back to you more often, and we committed on a quarterly basis to come back, in which we will also have communicated with departments. What was very clear was that your board was asking for more information from departments regarding their needs and their time constraints and resources needed to meet goals. And so we will be coming back to you on a quarterly basis. Input from department heads, and sometimes department heads will be present so that they can also give you an update and you can ask questions. Do you have anything you want to add on the first day? The second day is the day that we have all of our department heads join us, and this really is a rare opportunity that you get with your department heads and they with you. And it's a very full day. It's fun, but yet we're all pretty exhausted by the end of the day. This year we did it a little bit different. Rather than in the past, we've had department heads come in. Sometimes they paired up in groups such as public safety, health and human services. This time we completely mixed it up. And this year we had 2 different ways that staff interacted with the board. The first one was we created what we called Our Lands. We created a flag. We were to discuss what our land was about, what we provided, what do we need from other lands, and what do we want other lands to know. And this is a time that other departments get to hear from from each other, and it really is important. We receive a lot of feedback throughout the year. Departments enjoy that interaction. They don't often get to work with some of the department heads. We often work in silos, and this helps to break that down. The other one that we did, and you'll see in your board memo, where for lack of a better word, we called it speed dating. And before anyone gets worried about that, we'll talk about what that means. So what we did was we had tables that were arranged in a U, and we had some staff and board members along the outside of the table, and then we took staff and board members and moved them along the inside of the table. The ones on the outside were stationary and did not move. The ones on the inside, say every 5 minutes, a bell rang and they switched. What this did was give everyone time, 5 minutes, to discuss and have conversations with whoever it is that they were paired with. Even though we spent about 2 hours doing this, we still didn't have enough time for everyone to talk to everyone. But the feedback from department heads has been tremendous. They enjoyed that time with each other. As we talked about in the memo here, sometimes when you're in departments, you work with specific departments. For example, your public safety, your district attorney, probation, and sheriffs might work together quite often. They may not work with animal control or health and human services very often. So this is a time that we really get to mix it up, and they can start working across lines and collaborate and maybe even share resources to become more efficient. Anything you want to add on day 2? No. And then on day 3, this is where department heads are not part of day 3. We again come back to board members, county council, myself, and then we had the assistant county administrator. And for day 1 and day 3, we did have a couple of members of the public there as well. And what we did on day 3 was we kind of revisited what did we hear from our department heads. And then at that point, we really looked to the board to help determine what are your priorities and what are your goals for the coming year for all of us to focus on. Over the last, at least 7 years since I've been in the county administrator's office, the board's priority has been public safety and roads, and that has been made very clear every single year. This year, the board is still focusing. You still made that clear that those are your 2 priorities. But we have focus areas this year. So underneath those 2 priorities, we have 4 external focus areas, which is fire preparedness. Supervisor Brennan is part of our task force that we're working on all kinds of information that will be brought to you in next week. We have land use updates to our ordinance, so that's in relation to the general plan. Road improvements specific to now that we have SB1 funding, so what type of programs and projects can they do to improve our road system. And then vulnerable populations. That comes in, that is a very broad term. That can be anything from our aging population to homelessness to children to those who don't have the means to meet all of their needs. Then we have 2 internal focus areas, and these very near and dear to all of us. So employee development, your board adopted a policy on employee development. You even updated all of your mission and vision and value statements that we have posted in every single county department. So we'll be doing a concentrated effort, and one of the terms I like to use both personally and professionally is we'll be focusing all of these with intent. So really staying focused is important here. And then county infrastructure. Since the recession and from when I'm talking to all of my colleagues across the state, what we have tended to not be able to do is really invest in some of our buildings. So when we look at our HVAC systems and some of the general maintenance, while we have been putting money into roofs, and that's great, what we need to do is bring to you some information related to what are the condition of our facilities, what are the recommendations that our facilities has for HVAC systems, further roof projects, flooring, and then also what is the priority for that? And then we talk about IT. We do have a current project that is going right now. It's our ERP, which is our finance, budget, and software, HR software. That is coming along. It's taking longer than we had hoped, and we can get you guys an update pretty soon with that one. The reason is they've changed names. I think we're on the 3rd or 4th name now, and they've been purchased out, and then we're on the 3rd project, might even be maybe even 4th project manager. So we've relayed our concerns and frustrations with our vendor about that. Eric Earhart, our assistant county administrator, is on that team, and he is pushing them to get them moving that project along with our auditor, controller, and HR manager. So with that being said, I'm going to defer to my colleague here and see what she'd like to add.
Just a few comments. I wanted to say that I think this retreat, after maybe 5 years or so of doing these, was probably the most energetic, positive, and I really got a great sense of teamwork, especially when all the department heads were there, so that it just left me with such a wonderful feeling afterwards. And I know my 2 staff that were also there we're really pleased to be able to be there and hear what the other departments have to say because we work so closely with all of them, plus your board. It was really great for my staff to be able to be present. I really liked the question that Larry had us ask one another when we did the speed dating. You know, what can I do for you? What can you do for me? I think that is sort of building in what Tracy's talking about, breaking down the silos, because it turns out there are things we can all do to help one another. And I'll just give you an example of something that's happening today is 3 of my staff are over at the DA's office doing a training that the Judicial Council is paying for that my staff and her staff need. Carlin and I would be there today, except for we're here with you all. But to me, that's just a really great example of collaboration. And I think it wouldn't have come except for the fact that we got to do this workshop and have those discussions. And I guess that's really all I wanted to add.
I'm going to ask for public comment, but first, any public comment? Okay. And actually, just a correction, we had at least one member of the public there all 3 days, okay? I think, anyway, so I'll start on my left. Was your first one? What do you got, Supervisor Campbell?
Well, it was a very, very useful weekend, or week, I guess. I think that, the priorities that we outlined are good and sound and in the best interest of the public in Tuolumne County. Obviously, fire protection and maintaining our roads all along have been what the community has asked for and what is apparent. The apparent need is present. So, I think that meeting was useful in getting to the meat of how to accomplish those things, because it's nice to have a goal, but getting there is the problem. And so I think we took a good step in terms of getting there.
Okay. Supervisor Kirk?
It was good. Like everything right now, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. But I think the biggest thing that I walked away from there is we have good people in place, and we have a good leadership team, and people want to get things done. So I'm confident and I trust our staff that either way, somehow we'll get there. So something that I just wrote down here while I was thinking about it, I'm a visual person. And so I don't know if we could go to Staples, and I would like for you guys to print out those 6 bullet points and have every department head hang that in their door. And if that means down the chain, everybody who's working for somebody, but just that way people get buy-in who are working for this county. Okay, this is what we're focused on. How can I make this happen for my boss and all the way up the chain so we can get some of these things done? Because last year I watched the board meeting, and there was a presentation, and it was like pages and pages long. And no offense, but I turned it off. It got kind of boring. This is 6 points. I think it's achievable one way or another. So I would like people to be looking at that every day when they walk into work. How can I make this happen for my department? How can I make this happen for my boss? How can I make this happen for the citizens? So I think if it's something that we're seeing, out of sight, out of mind, we need to be every day thinking about these things. So I did have some things I want to bring up about fire, but I don't think right now is the time. I'll wait till next week. But it's coming up on March. Fire season is going to be here before we know it. So I really want to make sure we're in high gear on some of these issues. But I'll hold off on this till next week.
Supervisor Kirk, just so you know, we actually did speak with Alicia. She'll be working on it. I let her know that you had made that request, so we'll do some laminated cards. We'll also have one for each of you on your dais as well, so that as we're kind of reminding, stick to our priorities when we can, but also we can get those for the departments so that they have those as a visual as well.
Supervisor Brennan?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you added giving it to us, because it's just as important for us to remember what the priorities are, and remember that every time we go in and make a request of staff, that, we heard that loud and clear. Staff wants to accommodate this Board of Supervisors. They work very hard to do that, and so it's just as important for us to remember what these priorities are. I've been doing this my 6th time, and this was had so much, the outcomes were just so evident. And the speed dating in particular was impressive in the conversations, and I'll even say the eavesdropping, because we had a little group of 4 of us, and the collaboration, when we were talking, and collaboration between departments that just don't have a chance to talk to each other, and, Anaya saying, I'm sorry, not Anaya, Kanan saying, well, there might be a way that we can help with that through, it just, is going to be so beneficial. We already do things really, really well in Tuolumne County, and I think we just stepped it up a notch. The quarterly reporting, again, that's going to be a way to keep us on task. And, and I agree, we would see, flow charts across the walls here, and we didn't have a good system for how are we doing. How are we actually doing and achieving those goals? So I'm excited about simplifying it and prioritizing, and then having hopefully some accountability as we move through this year on the progress. And I will just say, because the fire preparedness has surfaced as our number 1 priority, and we're hearing about it quite a bit in the public, we have met, and we are committed to doing once a month. We're going to have an update at our second meeting. It will be a scheduled appointment time. I believe 11 a.m. is when we're going to have that, so that the public will be routinely updated, as well as the Board of Supervisors, because there are so many moving pieces around that, and we are putting such a collaborative effort in place. So we will be having that. It will, again, at 11 a.m. on the 3rd Tuesday of each month, we will be having those updates.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you that by far this was the best one of these that I've attended. This annual retreat, I know there's some people out there that really don't understand the value of this, but I can tell you that as far as I'm concerned, the 3 days that we spend doing this every year is the best investment that we make in our time, the board's time, and I think the staff's time as well. It does give us a unique opportunity that we can't do any other way that I know of, to really build Team Tuolumne County, which is what I believe our county government ought to be. And it is an opportunity for all the leaders in our staff, and we have some incredible leaders. In fact, all of them are incredible leaders in our staff. It's a chance for them to get with each other in a way that it's just not possible in any other fashion. So, and this year, when we were doing the speed dating, the buzzer went off every 5 minutes, okay? Except that it didn't. It took us about 7 minutes to break people apart because the discussion was that compelling between people. And it did go probably longer than Tracy envisioned before we started. But it's an incredible time, and just the measure of how intense that kind of activity is mentally and emotionally. I thought I had recovered Monday. This was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I thought I'd recovered Monday morning, and I had an evening meeting Monday night, and I had to drag myself into that evening meeting. It was very intense, but very, very productive. So for the members of the public that maybe don't understand. It is extremely important. I don't know how we would function at the level we do in the county if we didn't have one of these every year. I kind of like CRA Director Gonzalez's kind of theme of when they come in with things that presentations, they focus on our mission statement and all of that stuff. I would like department heads when they're maybe think about it. I'm not directing it. I can't anyway. I'm just one supervisor. But I'd like to hear in presentations, this is feeding vulnerable populations, or this is these are the priorities that this presentation is addressing. And what that does is it ties everything together, but it also does what Supervisor Brennan and Supervisor Kirk were talking about, is it triggers in our minds how important that presentation is to feeding our priorities for the year. So think about that. Again, you're the boss, Tracy, so you get to decide whether you want to implement that or not, but it's just an idea. I think I asked for public comment first, did I not? Okay. I'll open it up for public I'll give the public another opportunity.
Thank you, Chairman Rotifer and members of the board. I want to apologize. The first time I got up here, I didn't address you properly, so I'll do so now. I was with the county for many years, as most of you know. Went through lots of different training, and I want to tell you, you talk about how valuable it is. You're absolutely correct. And you do not, it's easy for the public and the press to throw slings and arrows at the time that you spend away from, the dais or the department heads away from their offices or whatever. But it is extremely valuable. I went through some similar training many years ago. I like the speed dating better than what we called it. We called it dyads and triads, but it was a similar type of situation. And I'll never forget it because it really helped me in my job and administering my small part of the county. But I just want to tell you that at least I'm one person who has your back, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. So thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I will echo Mr. Wynn to an extent, and I want to thank Tracy because this was like 20 minutes. And in the past, it's been an hour and a half, and I got bored too. So you are my girl.
Come on up.
Board and presenters, Don Taylor from Groveland. I was fascinating that you had it open to the public to be there. I always assumed that this was something where you could squirrel yourself away and talk these things out without having somebody breathing down your neck. I would dearly love to be invited to go there one of these times just to see what goes on there. But thank you very much for having it. It is very important for staff to talk to each other.
And it was agendized. Maybe we didn't make a big enough deal about it, but it was agendized as a normal board meeting, as all of our board meetings are. We're required to have the public, we're required to be open to the public by the Brown Act, and we attempt to do that. So, and any more public comment? Okay. With that, thank you very much. Our board police can resume their normal stations. And with that, would the clerk of the board please read item 26?
Reports.
Okay, clerk of the board, you got a report?
I don't, thank you, except for the wonderful weather I've been experiencing.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm good.
County Council. Madam CAO.
One of the only things I wanted to report on was, as you know, we had a snow day and a few delayed starts with our staff in the interest of keeping people off the roads and looking out for their safety. I do want to share that, we've had, and I've tried to share those with you, feedback from staff, and they are incredibly thankful and appreciative that we took their safety to that level. Many of them, as you have seen, have just said, having that extra time to come down the hill after they've been able to plow or sand the roads means the world to them. They feel safer getting their children to school and to daycare. So I just want to relay that to you as well. And also, I am looking into some snow policies that other counties have that we can kind of create some, just a level playing field and some standard procedures. This isn't normal. I've lived here for about 12 years now, and I don't remember having this much snow at our house this many times. So, but we want to make sure we can get something for your board to consider that would set a standard practice in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Kirk?
Well, I better say something because Ryan will outdo me if I don't. That'd be great, because I think a lot of my phone calls and emails are, I grew up here. I remember in the 80s, well, I was a little kid, but in the 90s, we used to get storms like this all the time, but it's been about 15 years. So I think if people understand what the playing field is, when they're waiting 2-3 days, they'll know what the procedure is. But just to remind constituents, when it snows this low, usually the average is about 300 to 350 miles of plowing, but when it snows this low, it goes to 900 miles of plowing. So once you see that number on paper, they get it. So I just want to make that public. Going to lots of meetings, homeowners association meetings. I stopped by the warming shelter at Adventist Health, so thank you for the volunteers who were there. And also, thank you to the church up at New York Village, We're Alive. They also opened up a warming shelter. So I think just thank the public for that outreach. That's it.
Supervisor Campbell?
Yeah, I'd also like to echo the great thanks for the volunteers and staff who worked at the warming center in Sonoran, and as well as the Miwok Village Warming Center. Really helped a lot of people, and it's hard to get people that are homeless to come to warming facilities. I've talked to many people that are working in the homeless community, and people, all their possessions are in their campsite. And so it's difficult to get people to leave that and come to a warming center. But I think we put a lot of work into kind of reaching out to people. And so I know that the second day that the warming center was open, we had something like 3 times the number of people show up. So anyway, thank you to staff for the time and the effort that you put into that. On short notice, by the way. I participated in my first ATCA committee meeting. We're trying to hire a new director of ATCA, and so the Internal Affairs Committee, which I'm also serving on, has come up with a job description and questions to ask that candidate. So we're looking forward to diving into that, along with Supervisor Rutherford. I toured with Supervisor Kirk, we toured the County Council and Assessor Recorder. They're 2 departments that are kind of the unsung heroes of our county. They do a lot of work that you don't see on a day-to-day basis, but we couldn't function without it. So thank you very much for that. I also took a tour of the sheriff facilities. Some of the offices are in portable buildings that were intended for 5 years use, and here we are 26 years later, and they're still in use, and they're in pretty severe disrepair. So we're looking into what we can do about that. I also toured the juvenile detention facility. No matter what your feelings are about how that came about, and I know I've had expressed misgivings about it, every person that's working there has devoted their life to helping those kids, and it really is having a positive impact in our community. So I thank you to all the staff who work at the juvenile detention facility and in our probation offices. They're really, they're amazing. They're heroes. So I was really grateful to have the time to see that and to talk to those. I like talking to people that are out doing things in the community and really passionate about it, and there was a lot of passion there. So That's my report. Thank you.
Supervisor Brandon?
Yeah. I have to really start off by thanking our staff. Both the other supervisors highlighted this, but when we look at the roads that we had to plow, the trees that were down, the vulnerable populations that needed a place to go, Tuolumne County staff really stepped up. Roads Department, David, please, I hope they know how much we really appreciate their literally 20-hour days, a number of days in a row. And then the exterior partners, because, again, PG&E, Caltrans, the hospital helping us with the warming center. Again, it takes a lot of different individuals to really pull off, when we have these kinds of emergencies. And so a tremendous thank you for everyone that was involved. On Thursday, we had the Area 12 meeting, and wanted to announce that they are going to be holding a public hearing on their area plan on Thursday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the agency offices on Standard Road. If you are 60 years or older, please consider filling out the survey or going to the public meeting, because this is really, it's an opportunity. We need to understand what it's going to take, what it's needed to safely stay independent in your home today and in the future. And so this is an opportunity for our seniors to weigh in on what services are important for them and how the agency can accommodate those. And then lastly, I've had the opportunity to be on an employee search. We are, Tuolumne County is part of a 4-county JPA with UC Extension, and UC has another position that they are going to be filling for that JPA. It is for a natural resource / livestock advisor, which is going to be really beneficial for that cooperative effort. And that advisor will be housed in Tuolumne County. And so I've been participating on that employee search, and really happy at the pool of candidates that are going to be going forward. We're going to be the beneficiaries of some very important knowledge that's going to be coming to our 4-county area.
Okay. So I'm going to report on a couple of things. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to our staff, our Office of Emergency Services staff, our Health and Human Services staff. That warming center that we did, that was a first, okay? Normally our warming centers are staffed by the American Red Cross. There were a couple of reasons why they didn't staff it, one of which was a lot of their volunteers, most of their volunteers were snowed in themselves. We actually ended up, I guess we actually used the jaws of life to break the lock of the locker or the trailer that they've got, that they house their cots in, so that we could actually get the equipment into the warming center that we needed. We did that on the fly, and if you were watching one of the exercises that the military puts you through is what's called drown proofing. You have to stay afloat in a pool without using your arms, okay? And your legs are working pretty furiously, but the part of the body that you can see above the water is not doing very much. And that's kind of what it was like, was the legs were moving furiously to make this thing happen, and those legs were our staff people that came to work that day and had no idea that that we were going to ask them to do this, and had no prior experience really doing it. And we put it together on the fly. It worked, I think, flawlessly. Interestingly enough, the some of the staff that volunteered, I believe, and they were a couple of our newest staff members, and they were just I won't say overjoyed, but they were excited to be part of that activity. And so it's just another commentary on what a wonderful staff we have. We can pull all that stuff together, and a lot of the work was, the organizational work was done, led by Liz Peterson, who's our OES director, and obviously Ann and her key leaders in Health and Human Services participate in that as well. But huge thanks to those folks. Like I said, they came to work having no idea that that was going to be what they're going to be doing that day. On Friday, I met with my counterpart over in Calaveras County. We share Lake Tulloch and Maloney's Reservoir, Dennis Mills, and we met with the director, executive director of Tridam, and this is for my board members' information. We are contemplating going to our various boards to form a joint powers authority, or possibly something that looks a lot like the joint powers authority, but potentially a joint powers authority for public safety and permitting on Lake Tulloch. Okay, there are some issues there, and they're getting worse, quite frankly. In the summertime, I'm convinced that if you took your time, you could walk across that lake on the boats that are on the lake. It's just way densely packed. There are some FERC requirements for public access to that lake that have to be considered, but we need to figure out a way to police that lake better. And interestingly enough, that meeting was attended by, I believe he's the head of the LTA, the Lake Tulloch Alliance. They're all for doing something like this, so we've got the public behind us. Anyway, I'm just putting that out there because you're probably going to see something in the hopefully fairly near future for us trying to put together some kind of a joint governance structure over that lake. Okay, it's a long time needed, and we just have to get control over the activity levels on that lake. It's a serious public safety issue. So with that, that's everybody else has already talked about some of the other activities that I did during the last 2 weeks. So with that, I'll end my report, and I will ask the clerk of the board to read items 27, 28, and 29, our closed session items.
This is closed session conference with real property negotiator Price and Terms, Tracy Riggs and Daniel Richardson. Authority Government Code Section 54956.8 for the following. 0.47 acre, formerly known as North Hess Avenue in East Sonora with APN 097-010-028, and Lot 1, this is 0.404 acres. As of undeveloped common land, Block 6, Groveland Town Site, and 0.27 acres formerly known as the Old Cavallari Road in East Sonora, and it's an APN 043-133-015. The next one is closed session, public employee performance evaluation, Government Code Section 54957B1. The title is General Services Director. And closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Authority Government Code Section 5495669D2, one case.
Okay. Any public comment on any of the closed session items?
I'm not sure why Daniel's up since he's only been in the job like less than a month, but I still have something to say. So I've been very impressed because I've been hearing comments from the departments that he's gone out and made them feel important. So that's really great. And then I came and talked to some people at the Recreation Department because there are some suicide prevention trainers that are willing to come in and would like to train the recreation staff for free in suicide prevention when their summer programs are up and running, because that's very important. So I hope that's part of his evaluation to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Any other public comment? Okay, we're going to go into closed session. I'll ask my contemporaries, my colleagues, to be in place at 45. That'll give us a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back at 11 o'clock for our 11 o'clock appointment. Can have your attention. We're going to reconvene from closed session. We did complete item 27. There is nothing to report on item 27. And in about 25 seconds, we'll read our 11 o'clock appointment. Go ahead and read the 11 o'clock appointment.
This is a presentation on the status, biofacility wood project campus pillar, and administration of the National Disaster Resiliency Competition Grant.
Okay. 2, 1, 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
Staff report.
Staff report. Good morning. Maureen Frank, Deputy County Administrator. Today, the core team and some of our consultants are here today to give you a presentation. The presentation is basically 2 components. What we want to do is provide the findings from the final presentation of the biomass facility study that was done. And then the second component will be to look at the NDRC process and talk about timelines, and HCD staff is here to answer any questions you may have. So with that, as you may know, back a few years ago, the state of California, along with U.S. Forest Service and the county of Tuolumne, applied for and received NDRC funding. And specifically, the funding was for a program that we call the Community and Watershed Resiliency Program. And it's made up of 3 pillars. Those 3 pillars are the forest and watershed health, the biomass facility wood project campus, and the Community Resiliency Center. Back in November, the core team was before you to give an overview of all 3 of these pillars, but specifically we spent most of our time talking to you about the biomass and wood product campus pillar. At that time, the core group presented their preliminary findings of the study that we're going to talk about today, and said our next steps would be to come back in front of your board when the final report was done. So the final report is done, so we're back in front of you to give you a report on those findings. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Elliot Van de Kock, who will lead off the presentation.
All right, thanks, Mo.
You're welcome.
My name is Elliot Van der Kolk. I work with the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and I just want to take a few minutes to introduce. I know we have a couple new board members, so I want to make sure you had I think Mo just did a really good overview of our project, but I just wanted to go 2 slides in with that, and then I'll hand it over to my colleagues here at the Beck Group. So background on SNC, maybe you all know who we are, but just so you know, we are a state agency created in 2004, spanning the entire range of the Sierra Nevada. And you can see our mission down below, but we work to improve the environmental, social, and economic well-being of this region. So as Mo mentioned, this is a complicated, probably overly complicated organization chart of kind of how our grant program works. It was an initiative led by the governor's office a few years ago, and now in our core team, so our coordinating committee, there's the Department of Housing and Community Development. We have a couple representatives behind me here today. We have the Office of Planning and Research, California EPA, my agency, the SNC, Tuolumne County, and CAL FIRE, and the Forest Service on our core team. And sort of at the bottom here, you can see that Sierra Nevada Conservancy plays the project coordinator for the forest and watershed health and the biomass utilization facility pillars. So we're the ones that report to you on the progress on those, as well as continue to get stakeholder engagement in those projects and make sure they are complete. So as Mo mentioned, these are our 3 separate but interrelated programs. So we're going to spend the beginning of this presentation today talking about phase 1 of the Biomass and Wood Products Campus. So that's our feasibility study. And we procured the Beck Group from Portland, Oregon. So I'm joined here with Roy Anderson and his subcontractor, Bill Carlson, who completed this. So back in November, they presented the first report, which is our feedstock supply study, looking at the area around Tuolumne County and what kind of material is available at what prices. They're going to give a brief overview of that and then dive into the economic viability study, which is the report that was sent out to you earlier today. And both of those reports are both on the Tuolumne County website as well as our Sierra Nevada Conservancy website for everyone to look at. So I'm going to hand it over to them, and then they're going to go through the report, and then I'll talk about next steps moving into phase 2 of our program. And just for sake of time, we're going to hold questions until they finish up and I finish up, and then we'll answer any questions about the whole biomass piece of the project. Just switch here.
I'll let you. Is that all right if I say?
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Elliot. My name is Roy Anderson. I work at the Beck Group, and I was here last November and saw some of you, and there's some new faces as well. So glad to be back. If you can go to the next slide. This slide kind of shows the whole process that we've gone through in completing this work. Basically, last April, we came down for a public meeting and kind of announced the project and said this is what our plan is. The first step of the work was completing a supply study. That was done by the end of the summer, early fall, and then we came in November and gave a report on the results of the supply study. And after that, we moved on to the feasibility assessment phase, and that is now complete, and we're at the end of the study, and we're here to report the results of the feasibility analysis. So, like Elliot mentioned, before we get into the feasibility discussion, I just wanted to quickly review what the supply study findings were for everyone's benefit, especially those that weren't here in November. And that's what this chart shows here. It shows, in terms of volume, what was estimated to be out there on the landscape. And this is within a 40-mile radius of Sonora. And all of the numbers are bone-dry tons. And so if that's a term you're not familiar with, it's basically the weight of material after subtracting the part of it that's water. So usually wood is about 50% water by weight. So if you actually weighed this estimated amount of material, it would weigh double. But by expressing it this way, it's just only expressing the weight of the wood. So anyway, that's what's being shown here. And you can see, if you look on the left-hand side, there's close to 650,000 bone-dry tons that is out there potentially available each year. But then you have to start accounting for some of it's not accessible or some of it's not economically viable to be able to utilize. And so after you account for that, you lose roughly 150,000 bone-dry tons. That's the second column in from the left. And then you also have to account for what's already being utilized. Those are those middle columns there. And by the time you get all the way over to the right-hand side of the table, the supply study finding was that there was only about 42,000 bone-dry tons out of the close to 650,000 total that's not being utilized in some way or another. So you can see it's quite a dramatic reduction from what's potentially available. So that was a key finding in terms of supply. And one other thing, last thing real quick on this slide, we really wanted to focus on the forest-derived feedstocks, just because that aligns well with, if you can utilize those, it helps reduce wildfire risk and things, and increase forest health if you can utilize feedstocks straight from the forest. So that's where we were focused on that row. If you can go to the next slide. In this slide, it's basically all of the same information, it's the row that I was just talking about, the forest-derived feedstocks row. That's what we're looking at in more detail here. So the total on the bottom there you see is 170,000 bone-dry tons of forest-derived feedstocks. And we divided it into a bunch of different sources of that material and estimated what it would cost for each one of the material from each one of those sources to be delivered into a facility. And again, you can see here there's quite a range. It goes all the way from a low of about $25 a bone-dry ton up to over $80 a bone-dry ton. The reason we have the lower part of the graph there highlighted is because a lot of the material is already being used in one form or another. We think any new facility that would come in would probably have to pay at the higher end of the price range there, just because the existing facilities are likely to be using the lowest cost available materials. So one last thing on the supply study before we move into the feasibility. There was two kind of wild cards that came into play in the supply study that in all of the supply studies I've done, I haven't really run across this situation. One is Pacific Ultra Power. They're operating under a BioRam contract, which is a 5-year contract, and part of the terms of that contract are that they're obligated to use fuel from special sources, high hazard zones, and they have to meet a certain percentage of their fuel has to come from those sources. And the amount ramps up over time, from 50 to 60 to 80% of their fuel has to come from those sources. And, getting 80% of your fuel from a designated source is it's not an easy task. And so there's kind of an unknown out there about whether or not that power plant will be able to procure enough fuel from the qualifying sources. And if they can't do it, they have an ability in their contract to operate. They still are operating under the contract. It's kind of in the bullet point there. It says opt out of the contract. That's not exactly accurate. They would still be working under the contract, but they would get paid a fallback price, a lower price for their power. So it's not really known what's going to happen with that plant, if they'll keep operating under BioRam and keep using fuel from high hazard zones, or if they choose this fallback option that would relieve their obligation to use fuel from the high hazard zone sources, and it would free up, if that happened, it would free up about 105,000 bone-dry tons a year. So it's this huge swing volume. Or it could be somewhere in the middle. There's a new bill that was passed, Senate Bill 901, that will give some relief to the power plants that are operating under BioRam, but nobody's exactly sure how that's going to be implemented yet. So it's just, you can't say anything definitive about what the future might look like there. So it's a wild card. The other thing about this supply study is there's a lot of dead trees standing on the landscape. And usually we don't consider dead trees as part of the supply long term, just because they decay over time and they're usually not viable for a long period. And so it doesn't really make sense to include them as part of the supply. But in this study, we decided it was worth considering that as part of the supply. And one of the main reasons for it was A lot of the trees, a good percentage of them that are standing on the landscape that are dead are very large diameter. And so we believe that will they'll be viable for a longer period of time just because of the fact that they're larger diameter. So we did include that volume in the study. So that's enough about where we've been. Now we're moving on to new information here about the results of the feasibility study. We have a database of about 40 different technologies that can be used for manufacturing different kinds of wood fiber into products. And we started with that big list and said we need a way to narrow it down to a few that we believe make sense for this region here. And so we developed a screening process. There was about a dozen, or maybe it was 13 or 14 different criteria that we scored each of these technologies on. And you can see some of them are listed here. And so we went through that whole process, and there was basically 4 or 5 technologies that fell out of that we felt were worthy of taking a closer look at and doing a deeper dive on feasibility. So here's a list of the businesses that we ended up taking a close look at. There's actually 5 of them that we did a feasibility analysis on, but I want to focus on the first 4 there today. And the reason for that is we looked at this concept of co-locating all of the businesses at one site where they could share labor, they could share management, they could share costs, and as you'll see as we go along, that concept of shared resources and shared costs improve the viability overall of any single business standing alone versus this co-located concept. I also want to just mention a few things about the site. We think the site would need to be about 7.5 to 10 acres in size to be able to hold these 4 businesses. There is a couple that were identified. The Kamaj Avenue site, I don't know if that's quite big enough. I think that's closer to like 5 acres. So I think there would be, that might not work as well. But the Tuolumne County Wood Sort Yard, I do believe would be large enough. The problem there is it's about 15, I can't remember, it's 15 minutes or 15 miles. Now farther away from where most of the trees are located. And so that's just extra time and cost for transporting the material. We estimate it's about $5 or $6 extra per bone dry ton for delivery. So, there might also be other sites out there as well, but we were kind of focused on those 2. Another clear need of a site, any site that would be selected, is that it needs to have a substation there that can handle about 5 megawatts of power going through it. Also, the power plant both discharges and needs quite a bit of water, and so there would need to be access to a fair amount of water there. And then also, in terms of trucks coming in with raw material and trucks going out, it would be a total of about 6,000 truckloads a year. So you'd have to be thinking about traffic issues and access in and out of the site. So on this slide, I know there's a lot of numbers, but it's the most concise way that I could come up with for kind of summarizing the feasibility analysis. So this table lists all of the businesses that we looked at, or at least the 4 that would be co-located. They're listed there on the left-hand side. Then the next column over shows the amount of raw material that each business would require. And the point I need to make here is that if you add up the total, it's close to 50,000 bone dry tons total used by the 4 businesses. And so that's higher than, the 42,000 that was estimated to be available in the supply study. So that's, a question mark about all of this. But like I was pointing out when I was talking about Pacific Ultra Power, there may be potentially as much as 105,000 extra bone dry tons available per year that could be used. Or, it may be possible for any of the businesses to reach out a little farther than 40 miles for just a small portion of their supply and still be able to have their average delivered raw material cost be within the parameters that we used for our feasibility analysis. And another thing about the power plant, Bill's going to talk more about the power plant, but this is another key benefit of co-location is the sawmill and the post and pole plant and the bundled firewood operations all bring in their raw material, and when in their process of converting it to products, it varies from business to business, but a fair amount of what they bring in ends up as a byproduct. And so we said all of that byproduct could be transferred over to the power plant at a transfer price of $30 a bone dry ton, which is a lot lower than what the power plant would have to pay if they brought that material in straight from the forest. So it's a key benefit to the power plant to have this co-located concept. So that's what the raw material supply looks like. The next column is the number of jobs that we estimate would be created. You can see it's totals up to 46. And I just want to point out there that out of that 46, roughly a third is shared labor. And that's a combination of management, human resources, sales, all of those kinds of things, accounting. And then also in terms of maintaining the businesses like millwrights and all of that kind of stuff as well. So, I think that's a fair number of jobs created. The total capital investment for all of the businesses is close to $45 million. But you can see there's a huge range. Just the bundled firewood business is very low capital, less than $500,000 to get that started, up to close to $34 million for the biomass power plant. The next few columns have to do with the financial analysis, and you can see that EBIT or EBITDA, that stands for earnings before interest and taxes, or interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization for EBITDA. But all of the businesses are positive there, so that's a good thing. They all, in our analysis, would be profitable and have a payback on average of about 12 and a half years or 8% pre-tax. And then the last three columns, that just shows what the businesses could afford to pay on a break-even basis for the key number there is the $78 a bone dry ton. That's their break-even delivered raw material cost. So that's kind of what the results look like. I'll just take a quick minute to explain conceptually what the three businesses are, and then I'll turn it over to Bill to talk in more detail about the power plant. So for the sawmill, we're well aware that there's already two sawmills operating close by. But the idea here is there's certain logs that those two existing sawmills aren't necessarily interested in because they're a species that they're not interested in processing, or it's just cull material for those mills. So the idea is to utilize either standing dead trees or cull logs, and the sawmill would have a very simple design that would produce a single product, all sold under one grade. It would all be one length, and it would have just a very few thicknesses and widths. And then it would actually, we looked at exporting it to the Middle East and North Africa, where a lot of the a lot of the building construction that's done there uses concrete, and so they need lumber to make the forms. And it's a very stable market. Prices don't change very much, and that's the basic concept for the sawmill. The firewood business, it would make exclusively bundles of firewood, which provides a year-round market. They'd be sold at a retail level, or they'd be sold through retail distribution channels. And surprisingly, that is a large market, and it's, like I said, it's also year-round. And then the third business is a post and pole business, and the basic idea there is that you can use small diameter trees, make them into posts and poles, and there's a lot of ag that's going on nearby, and they're always needing posts and poles. The one thing is we didn't include a treating plant. Most posts and poles are treated with chemicals so that they, when they're placed into service, they can have a longer useful life. So we modeled this as the plant would produce untreated poles and posts and then sell them to, there's several nearby treating plants in California. Well, actually all over California. There's a lot of wood treaters. So that's the basic concept of those three businesses, and I guess with that I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk in more detail about the power plant.
Thanks, Roy. My portion of the study was to look at the integrated steam and power facility that would be built as part of this campus. You'll find in most large forest products complexes you always have a steam and power component to it. It has several purposes. One is that the other businesses require a source of heat for drying of their product before it goes to market. And secondly, the other businesses require electricity to operate, and it's typically cheaper to produce it yourself than it is to buy it at retail. And thirdly, they need a market for their byproduct materials. In the case of a forest products complex, it's typically shaving, sawdust, bark, and chips that come from the other businesses, some of which may be sold on the open market, but a lot of which are relatively low value materials and would be used to produce the steam and electricity, and that is clearly the case here. The volumes we're talking about are small enough that the logical facility to support them would be operated under what's called the BioMat program, and that stands for Bioenergy Market Adjusting Tariff, which is a special program that the Public Utility Commission administers and allows facilities to sell up to 3 megawatts of electricity produced by a narrow range of materials that either come off of high hazard zones out of the forest or the products of sustainable forest management, and can come from logs that meet those definitions that have been milled somewhere, and the byproducts then qualify for this program. So that's the premise that we went under, and it allows you then to sell this electricity to the investor-owned utilities such as PG&E at a relatively high price. In this case, the program is set right now at a price of $199.72 per megawatt hour. That's a very high number and is roughly 4 to 5 times the current wholesale price of even renewable electricity in California. But it's set at that level in order to support the high prices that Roy talked about for the materials that are coming out of the woods. And so these because of the volumes we're talking about, these all match up fairly well. And we could put in a facility that sold 3 megawatts to the utility and had produced up to an additional 2 megawatts for internal consumption, either to operate the power plant or to operate the sawmill. And there's a proposal right now under consideration by the Public Utility Commission, which is actually a product of their own staff, that says if someone is going to build a 5-megawatt facility, they should, when they have it, be able to sell all 5 megawatts to the utility. And if that goes through and is approved by the CPUC in the next few months, it would dramatically improve the economics of this proposal as well, because of this high marginal value of the electricity, the $199.72. And so that is one, again, that's another wild card that we don't know the final outcome of that, whether that'll be approved. The whole idea of the biomat program was to provide markets for this material that needs to come out of the woods under every forest management scenario you can look at. And if you're going to build the plant, you might as well utilize it to use more material. That's the concept here. So we considered 4 scenarios, different combinations that would take advantage of this program. The first was we looked at a 3-megawatt standalone gasification facility that sends the gas then to internal combustion engines to generate the electricity, okay, with the waste heat of that being going back to dry the material ahead of the gasification process. That was the first scenario. The second was to put in the same 3-megawatt standalone plant with no steam off-taker, but using more conventional boiler steam turbine technology. That basically of all the plants that do biomass power production in California right now, they all use that technology. Most of them are larger in size, but they all use that same technology. Now, we found that basically that those 2 scenarios did not pencil out for the purposes of this study. The fuel was simply too expensive to allow them to make money at this small level, at the 3-megawatt level. So then we transitioned then to looking at a 5-megawatt, which is the largest you can build under the biomat program. 5-megawatt nameplate is as large as you can have. But in this case, they would then supply steam to the other businesses. They would supply electricity to the other businesses, and they would take the byproducts of the other businesses, which actually gave them then a lower net fuel cost than the first 2 scenarios. And we found that unsupported by any other programs or any other sources of funds, the 5-megawatt plant came very close to penciling out at the 12% return that we thought was necessary to attract investors to this project. Okay, it was in the 8 or 9% range of a positive return, while the first 2 scenarios actually had negative returns and required a large infusion of grant funds in order to be viable. The 5-megawatt plant on a cogeneration basis did not require that, just simply required a low-interest loan of about a 2% level in order for them to gain the 12% return that we thought was necessary. The reason we went with the 12% required return was that this project has two areas of great uncertainty that we thought investors would have to look at. One of which is the fuel supply is, for the most part, off public lands. And that gives you much less certainty of supply over time. You can't necessarily bank the fact that you would have a 20-year lifetime of fuel. We know it's out there, but we don't know we'll always have access to it. The second is that the biomat contract that I talked about that you would sign at $199.72 is a fixed price contract for its life. And typically you would sign it for 20 years because that gives you the longest amortization period that you could get under the program. Well, if inflation stays low, like it has been for the last 2 decades, in the 2 to 3% range, that's not a terrible risk. But if inflation should jump up again to the 5 or 10% a year range, then you'd quickly be underwater on that. So those 2 issues caused us to seek a fairly high return for the developer at the 12% level. And now, as I mentioned earlier, if the CPUC approves the ability to sell all 5 megawatts when you have it, and all these other businesses that Roy described were modeled at just a single shift operation. So they operate roughly 40 hours a week, but you'd have another 128 hours a week that you could be selling all of this electricity at the 5 megawatt or close to the 5 megawatt level. That makes a dramatic difference in this. And consequently, those returns then shot up into the greater than 30% range. And so it became a very solid project at that point if they have the ability to sell a full 5 megawatts. Okay. So the last slide, Elliot. And so we thought we'd spend a little time here just giving you a little detail on why we chose the combination that we did as opposed to, say, for instance, choosing a gasification technology as the basis for this. Though there's a lot of gasification technology out there primarily in Europe, it has a lot narrower set of operating parameters than does the the strict combustion, just burning it in a boiler and then directing the steam to a steam turbine. The first is that the fuel needs to be dry and uniformly sized, and the material we're talking about, for the most part, shows up in the form of logging slash, and that is everything from bark to needles to limbs, and so it's neither dry nor uniformly sized. And by the time you get the size fraction that you're looking for in most of these gasification technologies, you've lost almost 50% of the fuel that's too fine for it. You've lost access to things like the sawdust that would come from the other businesses. And so in this particular instance, it had too narrow a specification in order for us to be comfortable saying that we can take all the material that's out there, utilize it in this technology. In fact, there's virtually no experience with mixed forest fuels right now in the gasification. There's proposals under this program that are out there, but none of them are operating and have demonstrated that this needle, bark, whitewood combination can be successfully operated at a high capacity factor, because the contract that you take from PG&E requires you to operate at a high capacity factor 80% or greater. And if you can't do that with this fuel, then you'll lose the contract. And there was some uncertainty over that. The biggest reason we would have selected that technology, given another set of circumstances, was that it produces as a byproduct biochar, which typically you don't get out of a combustion technology. That biochar has extremely high values today, but in looking at it in detail, it's also an extremely small market. There was just a study released in the last couple of months that basically said that in all of North America, the size of the market for biochar is about 45,000 bone dry tons a year. This is almost pure carbon material that has a very high value in agricultural operations primarily. But even a small facility like this would produce several thousand tons a year of biochar. And if all the facilities under the Biomat program did that, they would overwhelm the market that's out there today with biochar. And we were afraid that might depress the market dramatically should that occur. And so, again, we were nervous about that. It's also difficult to give good operating cost data because the facilities simply either haven't been operating or operating differently than we would be looking at here, using different fuels. And so we were more comfortable, even though we knew the upside is there on the gasification model because of the biochar, we just believed there was too much uncertainty, so we went with the standard combustion model in a boiler with a steam turbine. That also makes it much easier to support the other businesses in terms of their heat requirements, because you can match, out of the steam turbine, you can match exactly their steam requirements, which is not necessarily the case with a gasification facility. We just wanted to explain the logic there. It doesn't keep any individual developer from proposing, such a project in the county. So I'll just leave it with that, and we'll turn it back to Elliot. Get one more? Oh, sorry.
Yep. So to wrap things up for our part of it, I guess there'll be a chance for questions at the end, but just to summarize, we think that the work that we've done shows a pathway to developing a buff facility, but I think like Bill just mentioned, it's one pathway that we identified. There might be other developers that have other technologies or different proposals, but this is what we came up with. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the key concepts is this idea of co-locating businesses so that they can really share, and by doing that, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts in that case. There was 5 businesses that we identified. They were all viable, and 4 of them would be co-located at one site, and we estimate nearly 50 direct jobs, and that in turn leads to about, we think, 100 to 150 indirect jobs. So that would be things like, truck drivers to haul the material from the woods to the plant, or loggers to process the material in the woods, or different support businesses that would provide services to these new businesses. So again, I kind of feel like we went through a lot of stuff really fast there, but there's time for questions at the end. And Elliot, I think you have a few things to say before we get to that.
Thank you, Roy and Bill, for all that great work. And that is a lot of information, so take some time to digest it. So I want to just go over a few things about where we've been. So as I mentioned, this is culminating our phase 1 under the biomass utilization facility pillar. So looking at the feedstock supply study and the feasibility study are now complete. As Roy mentioned, I think this shows a potential pathway for us to move forward. And you know, as he also mentioned, this is one pathway that they identified. We're certainly open to other proposed developers and other technologies, provided that they meet the goals of the grant, which are mostly to increase forest health and resilience through by sourcing wood-based forest feedstock, as well as, most importantly, creating economic opportunities and jobs for low to moderate income individuals in the county. So that economic development piece is a huge part of why we're interested in this project. So as long as it meets those eligibility criteria and can be brought to operation within our time frame, we will entertain those proposals. So I also wanted to report back when I was here in November. I mentioned that we were releasing a request for information to see who's out there and who's tracking what we're doing. We received 5 responses to that RFI. 3 of them were proposing these biomass-size, small-scale bioenergy facilities, and 2 others were focused more on utilization, either grinding or firewood and other wood products. So we have people out there that are watching, and I know a couple other folks said they couldn't get things to me, but were interested and are continuing to track. So those folks are looking at this, and I think I sent out the report to them. I hope they're either here today or tuning in on the webcast to see what's coming next. Responding to their RFI was not a requirement for proposing a project for us to fund or to help pursue. So but it helps us to know what people are thinking and helped us to develop how we're moving forward in the next phase. So it's good to hear that there are folks out there that are interested in this project. It seems like there are financially viable opportunities within the county here. So as we move into phase 2, the big thing that we're working on right now with the Department of Housing and Community Development is to finalize an agreement with an organization called the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, RCAC. And they are based in West Sacramento and work all over the Western United States. But we want to work with them to administer our BUF implementation funds. So they will be doing things. They have extensive experience in loan origination, working with USDA and other federal funding sources. They've got great capacity to take all this on. And I think one of the big important things is a key goal of this grant is it's a pilot project, and we're looking to learn lessons that we can and to help replicate these successes to other communities throughout this region, throughout the Sierra Nevada, that either have faced catastrophic megafire like the Rim Fire or are at risk. And so what that allows us to do is they will be potentially creating a revolving loan fund with the funds that we subgrant to them. And the first issuance would go into Tuolumne County to support projects here. And as those loans are repaid, they go back into this fund and will be eligible for reissuing into other communities throughout the Sierra Nevada that are looking to expand their wood processing or biomass utilization infrastructure. So a lot more details to come on that piece, but that's what we're working on right now. The first thing that they're doing, and they've offered to work without pay to help us get things going while we finalize that agreement, is to create our planning grant guidelines. So we're going to be, the next stage here is we're going to be offering our request for proposals based to for a competitive planning grant program for developers that are interested in this, participating in this program. So we haven't finalized all the requirements of what that will look like. We're expecting that to come out early summer. So that will be out, I hope, by June or so. And that will allow them to do further due diligence, look at, take some of the information that the Beck Group has created, but dial it down to their specific technologies and help them start identifying sites, et cetera, with the idea that by the end of this year, their RCAC is also in parallel developing their financial assistance guidelines, so their loan origination program, to figure out how to best serve these businesses and market their services. And so by the end of this calendar year, we're looking to start screening those applications and look to have at least one developer that we're working with that is eligible to receive funds, and we'll start working out the details of how they get funded. This is a bit busy.
Clarification. Go back to that.
Yes.
I've got some questions around this after, but, so the bottom bullet there, it says winter of 2019?
Yes. December, starting, by the end of this year.
Okay, so, but winter, most likely early 2020 also, you'll be in that process?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll show you that there's a timeline on the next
Okay,
slide that goes
thank
into a
you.
little more. So, starting at the top here, I'm sorry that's blurring like that. That's kind of a headache. So as I mentioned, we've completed phase 1 of the feasibility study. That's the first step here. We're working with RCAC to finalize that agreement and develop the planning grant guidelines. Then we're going to be issuing that RFP starting in second, third quarter of this year, make those awards. Potential grantees will have until the end of the year to wrap up planning activities. Meanwhile, the RCAC is going to be working with us to develop that loan program and the financial guidelines and start marketing what their services will be, how they're going to work with folks to figure out the financing package that can work best for them to meet what they need. As I mentioned, in the fourth quarter, we're going to be looking at accepting and screening applications from proposed developers. Meanwhile, we're going to be looking, there's a fair amount they're going to be looking at what those businesses really need to succeed here. And so we have some flexibility in that we can do subsidized economic development loans and some other things to help them be successful. But we want to find the right balance of assistance there. So meanwhile, RCAC is going to be responsible for procuring an environmental consultant that's going to be beginning to look at the NEPA and the CEQA pieces of this project. So that's concurrent with some of figuring out the details of where and how this facility will be designed and operated. Meanwhile, they could potentially be using planning grants or their own funds to work on the engineering and design plans so that we can inform our decision. And so by the fourth quarter of 2020, we're looking at the full site control and approval and environmental clearance. And from there, once that occurs, that allows them to accept funds from our program, and they can procure equipment, they can begin construction. All of these are eligible costs under our program, as well as any equity or other financing that they bring to the table, with the goal of commissioning and operation, if necessary, in the fourth quarter of 2021 into 2022. And I just want to note at the end here, where that blue star is at the end of the second quarter of 2022, which is June 30th, 2022, is the NDR expenditure deadline for the biomass utilization facility, backing into our grant closeout when the federal appropriation for this grant expires on September 30th of 2022. So this is our proposed timeline for this is our roadmap to success here. You'll note on the bottom, I'm committed to coming here either to this meeting or to the Natural Resources Committee or whatever venue seems appropriate to give a quarterly update on what our progress is in pursuing this. And I hope that next time I'll be able to bring RCAC to help introduce those folks and what services they offer and put a face to their organization as well. So with that, that wraps up my piece. Here's my contact information. We have more information on our website there, including our reports. So happy to entertain any questions or however I can.
So I've got a question. Do you have any idea what the estimated daily water use and discharge would be associated with this entire operation?
Basically, the only user that would have any substantial amount of water use or discharge would be the power plant portion of it. If you just use a traditional design, there might be a water use in the neighborhood of 50 gallons a minute. But there are new technologies out there that utilize other wastewaters for makeup to the cooling system. And then that could probably drop down into the range of about 10 gallons a minute, 10 to 12 gallons a minute, if you use some of the newer technologies for the cooling system. And virtually no discharge, maybe a gallon or 2 gallons a minute of wastewater discharge.
Okay, thank you.
Question. So based on our most recent history of getting a small power plant up and running, do you think this timeline is realistic?
Absent the PG&E bankruptcy, yes. With the PG&E bankruptcy, I think there's just no way to know at this point.
Can you give me an example of one that's been done in, basically, we're talking about a little over 2 years, if we say
Yeah,
we're starting winter of next year?
You'd have to be starting in the environmental phase of it soon.
Soon.
Okay, because you're probably going to need the first year to go through and complete that phase of the process until you can do any more than just preliminary site work. You can compress the actual construction into probably 10 months or so. A year is more comfortable, but you can compress it into something as short as about 10 months.
So that gets at my concern a little bit, is the overlap on time, because I heard you say very soon to start the environmental process.
Yeah,
If this is really going to be something that's, we're going to have an opportunity at. And so, Elliot, can you address that a little bit? Or I appreciate that you're going to come and talk to us quarterly. I think that's going to be really important.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like there's an overlap here that we've got to give some consideration to.
Sure. I mean, that's why we have it as a pretty large portion of our timeline here. And this timeline is based on responses that I got from the RFI as well as the work that the Beck Group did. So these are what people are telling me is what they expect it would take. That's why it's at the very beginning, is that we're going to procure the environmental consultant to begin work on this. So again, it's 100% the most important piece. Granted, it's also, given uncertainty with PG&E, we're not committed to a bioenergy facility, which is going to have a much harder, much more rigorous environmental review than the other facilities would. And so, depending on what happens and how things move forward and who comes to the table with a proposed project here, that'll be a consideration as we screen and develop applications. Is what's your timeline, and is it realistic to getting through to completion?
So I guess some of my concern revolves around the uncertainty that we've had up to this point, and that a lot of this has taken longer than, and it's just the complexity of trying to work through the processes between HCD and HUD, and we have not, those timelines have been extended on almost every piece of this going. And it looks like we're getting to some of the more complicated pieces now. So I have a lot of concerns about our past history on being able to stay with timelines and how tight this timeline is going to be. And just those unknown, the complications that we have run into as we've been, just to get to this point.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big benefits that RCAC is going to bring to us. They have a very experienced staff that's very professional, and I think they expand our capacity a lot in implementing this program. So they've taken on, they're also, I think, shopping they're potentially looking at other facilities to invest in. So they're getting familiar with biomass as an industry, and it's an industry that they care about. So those are things that experience that are going to be important to bring to the table. So thank you for your concern.
Yeah, I guess then I'd be asking, what can HCD do to help us streamline the administrative process on this? Because I think that administrative paperwork has been one of the real complications, and so I think it's really going to take a commitment from everyone if we're going to realistically achieve this. And and that's really with all three pillars, because we've seen these complications across the spectrum.
Chairman. So kind of I'm going to piggyback off of what Supervisor Brennan said. So this includes what you would consider the normal time frame for CEQA and NEPA environmental review. I mean, is that built into this time frame?
Yeah, so that's right in the middle.
Right.
Here. And that was our guesses.
Does that include time considerations for if it's ever challenged, if the environmental review is challenged? I mean, is there extra time set aside for that? How long does a typical legal challenge to CEQA and NEPA take?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
And it depends on the level of review that's required, if it's a full environmental impact report or if it's a mitigating neg deck. So it's going to depend on the scope of that review and the other procedures. So I couldn't speculate right now.
I guess what I'm getting is this kind of best case scenario in terms of
I think
CEQA and
it's-
NEPA?
I think
mean,
it's a-
because what would be the worst case scenario if it was dragged out?
I don't know, Bill, do you have experience with this?
Well, I think it's not a best case. Elliott has built in enough time here under the environmental permitting activities to do more than what would be you'd consider a best case. I mean, typically within, say, 6 months, you could have it out on the street, for instance.
Okay.
And he's got in here built almost a year and a half to completion. And so there is some time in there for challenges to take place, not to drag out for year after year, no, but to satisfy. And if you do the EIS, then of course you have a much more defensible document than if the county simply declared a neg deck. And he's got plenty of time to develop a full-blown EIS and then defend it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's clearly not this wouldn't certainly be considered a best case scenario.
Okay. And then one more question. Who's going to review and approve the agricultural plan, and what say would Tuolumne County have in that?
I'm sorry, the agricultural plant?
So if we're going to develop an agricultural plan for this business, who would be in charge of that?
I'm not familiar with what that process would be, so.
So how would these businesses work within, kind of the agricultural products of the county? And would that be something that the county would oversee, or?
You're referring to like post and poll for, I guess
Yeah.
I think we mostly were looking at selling to other distributors, or yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. I mean, the market we were looking at was more ag-related, but I don't know if you're referring to something more on the permitting process up front?
I withdraw.
Okay.
All right, bear with me real quick. I got a few questions. Kind of what they were saying, if it gets mitigated, lawsuits happen and whatnot, and we miss that deadline, what happens? Is it over, game over, no money? Or
Deadline.
to have it built 2022? And you can do real short answers. I got a couple questions.
So that's the expenditure deadline. That's when, so if a developer has potentially other funds to help carry it over the finish line, that it can be helpful, but it has to be within operation and have economic development goals met.
Otherwise, all the money's withheld?
So up until it's the money that's expended past that site control. So that's when. So up until then,
Up until that date?
we're using planning funds, which do not have a clawback if a national objective is not.
Right, because as an investor, that would be something very scary to get involved in.
Of course, yeah.
So, and they're going to be looking at that.
Yeah, of course.
Real quick, could you go back to the first slide, the very first one that you presented?
Which
It was, sorry, go back. It had the charts like 33,292.
oh, sorry, and the other.
The material.
I'm just trying to make sense of this real quick. You kind of lose your train of thought when you go through this stuff so quick with you guys. Sorry about that. All right, so 33,292. Can you explain that number versus the 42,809 real quick at the bottom?
Yeah, so each row is basically a different source of material. So the 33,292 is material that would come straight out of the forest.
Straight out of the forest, okay.
That's not.
Mill residues is like maybe sawmill, sawdust, shavings, things like that.
Okay. So at this facility, at the very end of it, what would they be left with is 42,809?
Well, that's what we think is available out there as total supply.
Okay.
The facility would use the four businesses combined would use close to 50,000.
Close to 50, okay. So I'm looking at what is the name of this thing? I'm looking at the biomass utilization facility economic vitality assessment, and I'm on page, what did I write down? 2. And it says, combined, the business would utilize nearly 50,000 BTU biomass annually. Is that what that number is getting at? The 50,000?
That's what the businesses would use.
Would use, okay.
Yeah.
And then let me look at this real quick. On page 4, it says, on page 4, number 3, it says raw material. The feedback supplies study found that on an annual basis, there would be a minimum of about 40,000 BTU of biomass supply that is currently unutilized. So currently unutilized right now in Tuolumne County is 43,000? Okay. So I'm just getting all the numbers right. Okay. So I'm coming into this obviously as a new board member, and I get that we have this money set aside. I mean, was it 22 million? I mean, how awesome is that to bring that to Tuolumne County? But I'm afraid, like, you know, we have the 2 mills, we have Chinese, you know, we have the ultra power. It's like we already have things in place to do biomass work, but yet we're creating a whole nother biomass facility. Has anybody ever considered looking at this money since, you know, now that we're, you know, we're seeing the Paradise Fire, to take 22 million and actually create biomass instead of 22 million to create a facility, and then hope to God that we get private enterprise people in here to bring biomass into this facility? I mean, I could make a fire resilient community with 22 million, no problem. But what I'm worried about is missing that deadline. And if I'm a private business, with the uncertainty of all these, you know, if there's no CEQA, NEPA exemptions, if this is could get litigated, and then now I'm in the hole, it just seems like a really tight pinch. And I almost wonder if you know, Tom McClintock or Borges or any of these people have had this pitch to them where, hey, this is a chunk of money that we could use right now to create fire-safe communities. So if that hasn't, I think we should bring that up. You know, we haven't built the house yet. And if not, if that's something that isn't going to be addressed, then my main concern moving forward is not hitting the dead mark, the mark, and that's just my concern. I don't think it's the wisest use of taxpayers' dollars.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to public comment. And I'm going to ask, please try and keep your comments concise. Say what you need to say, but say it as concisely as possible. Thank you.
Larry Cope, Tuolumne County Economic Development Authority. Just a couple of questions and then a couple of comments. The questions would be, as you do your guys' build out and you guys work with individuals to bring a project to Tuolumne County, are you going to have a local vendor program built into that? And the second question would be, have you outreach to existing producers like SPI, Pacific Ultra Power, much to Anaya's comment, you know, is there a way that we can help existing what we already have built here with these loan dollars, either upgrading their facilities or bringing stuff to their facilities? So those would be the two questions. And then I guess a third question I would have is, the dollars were really brought to Tuolumne County for the purpose of the Rim Fire. But now I hear that once it's been loaned once to us, then it's going to go statewide. Why are those dollars not staying once they come back from the revolving loan fund, staying in Tuolumne County? Because this biomass problem that we have is not going to go away. It's going to continue to grow, for a lack of a better word. One concern I have is the federal environmental approval and the EIR. I sit on the committee that's working on the 2 resiliency centers, and we're having to approve, you know, both through federal environmental regulations and state, and I don't think we have enough time in that timeline. That's always been my concern. Thank you.
Okay, so local vendor program. I don't know exactly what you mean by local vendor program, so we'll have to chat offline about what you want for that and how that would work. Is that a prioritization for local businesses in the program?
You've got.
I don't believe, I have to check with HCD, but I don't believe that's eligible under HUD to do have local preference. But we can chat about that. And talking about existing users, I have, you know, we've been in Ultra Power and SPI are both aware of what we've been up to. There is a challenge within our at least the way that the program is designed by HUD is that, you know, in order to be eligible to receive CDBG NDR funds, they have to be an SBA certified small business, and so that can be a challenge for those 2 users, which I don't think would qualify. So it's a thing we can entertain as options, and potentially if there's a good opportunity there and we have a compelling reason to do so, we could and we can demonstrate that there will be economic development gains or either job increases or retention, then we can potentially go to HUD to ask for a waiver from that requirement. But again, that's obviously a lengthy process. So that's a challenge, and I think that we are looking at things that complement those businesses. So just want to throw that out there as sort of why we're looking at other businesses at this point.
Mr. Buckley.
John Buckley, CSERC. For those of you that have read this report, it's incredibly thorough. It's probably the most detailed and expert report on forest products that has ever been developed for anything in this region. And both Sierra Nevada Conservancy and the consultants deserve a lot of praise for being so detailed and so thorough. I've shared the same question that Sherry's raised in terms of can we get this done in a deadline and actually apply this funding to the important need to remove biomass from forests and reduce fire risk, which everybody shares that objective. I'm just throwing out that if either Sierra Nevada Conservancy or the county can consider if there are any options for Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions to partner with the county to request expedited waivers in terms of the environmental review for the biomass facility in particular, because if you're talking about a site like the Camaj Road property, which is already bulldozed, flat, has everything going, or the sort facility, there is not what would normally be considered the range of environmental issues or concerns. And if there was a way to expedite and to assure that review could be done in a very speeded up time frame that could better ensure that dollars are spent so that it's not an investor being hung out to dry. I'm just putting forward, it's not been discussed at YSS yet, but as those in the room certainly can speak, there's tremendous support for doing whatever is possible to get biomass from the forest. So I just throw that out there. Thanks for the report. Thank you.
Okay. Just a question. Mo, is there another presentation? Okay. Any other public comment on this? Okay. Mo?
At this time, I'd like to present the HCD staff view. They can talk to the board about NDRC process, timelines, and moving forward overall with the NDRC.
Okay. We need to move on, please. Go ahead.
Hello, I am Amanda Oman. I recently took the position on January 16th as the section lead for the disaster at Housing and Community Development. Currently, what I am doing is reading everything that I can on NDRC and also getting to know Tuolumne County. That includes listening to Mother Lode views. I also understand that we want to thank you very much for approving the general plan. And as taking this role, one of my duties is to build capacity. So what I can tell you is that within the next 30 days, we will have 8 staff people on hand to start working through some of these materials to assist Tuolumne County to get things moving for you. They are people who have expertise and can really assist. One of the individuals that I'm bringing on board has a good history with contracts and procurement, and one of the reasons I really wanted that person is because they have a history with the Rail Authority. And as you may know, working in the Rail Authority and all the issues they had, that experience will be very helpful for this. So I am reading everything. I do know that a couple weeks ago we received a timeline from Mo with some notes on it. So one of the things that I will need to do is go through it and make sure and go through it with Patrick and Elliot and the core team, see where we're at. And then what I'd like to do is start giving quarterly updates to the board. I think that's been an area that we have been lacking in. We have different, isn't it bi-monthly core team meetings that Mo is a part of. We have also consulting meetings and advisory meetings too, but we have been lacking in coming before the board and giving you a quarterly report as to what is going on. So I would like to say that I will do that. I will commit to that. I will also commit to that if there's any supervisor who wants me to come out to their staff or to you and meet in your office, we can go line by line on any concerns that you may have with these projects. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is let Elliot and Patrick share a little bit more about it because they are the experts at this juncture. I am not.
Good morning. Good morning, Patrick Talbot with HCD, and I'm the grant administrator, so I get the joy of helping to administer the HUD grant and report to HUD on our progress, and also in coordinating with all the different partners. So as you could tell, we have a lot of different partners involved, and we've been working on this for about 2 years now. We have a good foundation laid, I believe, and we're looking at 19 as a good year for implementation. So we've already got some contracts that the Forest Service has been able to put out. So we're moving forward with the Forest and Watershed Health. This year, one of my goals is to also coordinate with the CCC, the California Conservation Corps, enter into an agreement with them. That was part of our application to HUD, and we need to fulfill that piece of our application. And so as part of that, we will be coordinating with them and the Forest Service to hopefully get some work done on the rangeland up there. And so this year does, again, look like a very good year for the Forest and Watershed Health. And then in terms of the BUF, as Elliot just presented, the biomass utilization facility does look like we've got the feasibility analysis done. There are a lot of challenges, as with any very cutting-edge type of project development. And HUD recognizes that this grant was very cutting-edge, from the CRCs to the biomass utilization facility. These were conceptual plans that HUD said, okay, we're going to take a risk on you, and they are watching us very closely, I can let you know. So we actually do have quarterly meetings with them as well to give them updates on our status and the status with our partners. So if there's any further questions.
Are you folks done? I just want to make sure, because I'm going to open it up for public comment again, okay? Can I get any public comment? Anybody interested? Okay, I'm going to start out. Normally the chairman waits till last, but I can't help myself. This is I'm well into my 40th year in government service or being direct contract to a government agency. And I have to tell you, we used to call it the bleeding edge. This is the hemorrhaging edge. I have never in my life seen anything that has taken so much time to get so little distance down the road. And I don't mean to insult anybody that's doing it, because most of the people that are actually doing the work, you folks, aren't responsible for this, okay? Dealing with HUD has been extremely painful. I'm not sure the state has helped, but I don't know enough to say that. I do want to say the message that you delivered today, I think, is a good start in a new direction. I like the quarterly updates. I think we need to have that because of some of the concerns that were expressed by my colleagues here on the board about being able to spend this money before it goes away. Okay? There's no kind of money when you're a local jurisdiction that's better than OPM, other people's money. Okay? And I don't want anybody to feel like we're not grateful for this, but we're not going to be very grateful if we can't execute it. I like the discussion about the increasing capacity, okay? So I really appreciate that. I appreciate that message. I appreciate the work that has been done, and it is, I don't have the expertise that Mr. Buckley has, but if he says it's a good study, I'm okay with that. So I do appreciate the terrific work that's been done, but we got to get on with doing business here, and we got to get this stuff done. Otherwise, we just spent 2 years of wasted effort. It's good job security for the folks that did it, but it doesn't get anything done for our county or the state or the nation. So that's my comments. I want to thank all of you for the presentation. It was a good presentation, and I hope you understand the level of frustration that we've got with how we've gotten here. And don't take it personally because it's not directed at you folks. Good presentation. I want to thank you very much, and then I'm going to ask for any final comments from my colleagues. No?
I think you articulated it very well, and we'll look forward to those quarterly updates with getting some specific information, and then maybe some specific requests back.
And Naya, do you got anything?
Just real quick, when we're talking, one of the community resilience centers might go in my district. We're talking about 1 or 2. If we do decide in April that we're going to build 2, will the grant allow us to do that?
Yes, we've talked to HUD, and they are open to that. It does basically go to, will the facilities be able to operate in accordance with what we applied for? So when we did our ask to HUD in our application 3 years ago, then we put a lot of things into that Community Resilience Center. And unfortunately, they gave us half of what we asked for. So again, trying to make that into 2 is going to be challenging. But both the HCD and our other partners are committed to working with the county to make that happen. And so that's where we're at with that situation. So we will be reviewing the proposals that the county puts before the core team, and then the core team will do the analysis and make the decision.
The contract that the HCD has with the county states 1 and states if they want more than 1 and has 2, it's doable, which means that has been communicated to HUD.
So it's already been communicated.
It is a possibility.
Okay. Yeah, I think me being a new member, some of the frustration is we know as a community, we know what's best. We know how to do things, and to get hung up at that level and then have it dragged on for so long, that's what we're, I think that's what some of our frustration is. But
Well, all I can do is promise that the staff and I will get on.
thank you, guys.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the rat race, I guess. Okay. With that, I'm going to ask what are 2 remaining closed session items? How long do you think they're going to take total? Pardon me? I did public comment.
The litigation closed session may be 20 minutes, but it depends on questions.
Okay. Board preference. Do we want to break for lunch or work through lunch? You're fine either way? Yeah. You're good? Okay, let's go ahead. Will the clerk of the board please read our 28 and 29 again, please?
Sure. This is, let me click it here. This is closed session, Public Employee Performance Evaluation Authority, Government Code Section 5497.7B1. Title is General Services Director, and then the closed session, Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation Authority, Government Code Section 549569D2, 1 case.
Okay, we are going to adjourn to closed session.
Supervisor Rutherford?
Yes.
I might want to ask for public comment one more time.
Public comment on those last 2 items? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and adjourn into closed session, and we will, do we anticipate a report out? We do anticipate a report out, and we will be back to do that.